Chapter 2441. Hua Jin yawned and grumbled regretfully, I only received the notice early in the morning and rushed over. I didn't even choose my outfit carefully. As he said this, he asked nervously, do I look good in this outfit today? He had always been mindful of his image. Yun Shirshir took a serious look at him. Today he was wearing a black woolen coat, a white shirt and a black shirt. Yun Shirshir hesitated for a moment before giving a pertinent comment. It's quite normal. I have no choice. I'm not the main lead, so I can't steal the limelight from the main lead. As Hua Jin said this, he glared at Gu Xing's back view, which was surrounded by the media. I heard that he was banned some time ago. I thought I could replace him, but I didn't expect him to make a comeback. After a pause, he said regretfully, I could have been the male lead in this script. Yun Shirshir smiled and agreed with him, but she was a little dazed. Today's Hua Jin was different from before. In the past, he was always lifeless in the filming crew. No matter who he met, he would always have an arrogant look on his face. However, she happened to see him today. When a crew member saw him, he greeted him fearfully and he replied with a smile. He became gentler and more humble than before. It was as if this was how he was supposed to be. Hua Jin saw that she was in a daze and waved his hand in front of her face unhappily. Why are you ignoring me? Did you not sleep well? Look at your eyes, they look so listless. Yun Shirshir rubbed her eyes. I didn't sleep well last night. Here. Hua Jin passed her a bottle of eye drops and urged her, you're going to be on camera soon. What if you're so listless and ugly? At most, I'll make it into an emoticon package. Who knows, I might even become famous, Yun Shirshir said self-deprecatingly. Hua Jin imagined it and chuckled. It's quite interesting to imagine it. Yun Shirshir couldn't help but think of her own dark history. Previously, a netizen had taken a screenshot of a scene in the movie. In the end, because it was a crying scene, she hid in a corner outside the wedding and broke down and cried. At that moment, the screenshot was paused and her expression was so ugly that it was turned into an emoticon package and passed around by the netizens. Yun Shirshir really felt that the emoticon package was ugly to the extreme. Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen saw it and even used it as wallpaper. After looking at it for a while, they actually felt expression. Your dark history is much more fun than Curator King's. The netizens can play with it for a long time. She raised her hands in surrender. I give up. Just as she finished speaking, she caught sight of a group of people walking over from the corner of her eye. Gu Xingze walked toward her and stopped right in front of her. Yichen's, S's. There was a slight awkwardness in the air. The media looked at each other and focused their cameras on the two of them. They didn't want to miss even the tiniest detail. Regarding the two of them, the media had been making groundless accusations, hoping to find some clues. Chapter 2442. Most of the audience's expectations for this drama came from the pairing of the Golden Boy and the Jade Girl. Therefore, any news about the two of them would definitely be on the front page. Gu Xingze looked at her tenderly for a long time before he brushed past her and left. The group of reporters was stunned for half a second before they followed him like a swarm of bees. When the director arrived at the scene and saw the scene, he was furious and flew into a rage. Where did all these flies come from? Didn't I repeatedly emphasize that reporters without media credentials are not allowed to enter the venue? I don't know how these reporters managed to sneak into the venue, but they've made a mess and occupied all the media seats. The director immediately sent someone to maintain order. The opening ceremony began smoothly. Throughout the entire process, Hua Jin stuck to Yun Shirshir's side. He would either complain that the venue was too noisy or gossip with her. It was as if he had opened up a chatterbox. However, Yun Shirshir did not find him annoying at all. Instead, she thought that Hua Jin was really cute. When the ceremony was about to end, a staff member suddenly ran over and whispered to the director, Director, Ji Yan is here. Ji Yan? Yes. That newbie. The investor specially arranged for her to join the cast as the second female lead. The director pondered for a moment and suddenly frowned in displeasure. Why is she only here now? She said that there was an accident on the road, so she's late. An accident? Yes, her car was rear-ended. She took a taxi and rushed here after dealing with the accident. The director muttered, the ceremony is almost over. What is she doing here? Is she trying to make a fool of herself in front of the media? Tell her to get lost. Director, I don't think that's a good idea. The staff member had some misgivings. She's the second female lead appointed by the investor. If we drive her home, she'll cry and make a scene in front of the investor. If the investor gets angry, we won't be able to do anything. The director's facial muscles twitched a few times before he finally said, let her in. Okay. Yun Shishir vaguely heard some of the conversation and asked curiously, "Who is this Ji Yan?" Hua Jin said quietly, "I heard that she's a newbie with a strong background who landed in the cast directly." "Where did you hear that?" "That's what I heard. Many people on the internet are trying to find out her identity because many people think that she looks very similar to Yan Bingqing." When Yun Shishir heard this, her heart skipped a beat and her expression froze. "Yan Bingqing?" "Yes," Hua Jin nodded and said, "Didn't Yan Bingqing disappear some time ago?" Then Ji Yan posted a photo of her makeup on Weibo, and the netizens all said that the newcomer looks like Yan Bingqing. Many netizens even suspected that Yan Bingqing had disappeared some time ago because she had secretly gone abroad to have plastic surgery. Most likely it's going to be melted down and remolded, right? Plastic surgery has a time limit. No matter how good you look at the beginning, it's useless. However, after a long time, some side effects will come. At that time you need to be remolded. I also suspect that it's Yan Bingqing, but she just changed her stage name. At most, her eyes have become bigger, her nose has become more prominent, her chin has become a little sharper, and her breasts seem to have become a little bigger. Chapter 2443. Oh my god. So I'm not the only one who's suspicious. I also think that this Ji Yan is very suspicious. I also heard that after plastic surgery, it's necessary to take out the original prosthesis and reshape it. Lin Ji's face is swollen recently. Could it be that she secretly went for a hyaluronic acid injection? Tsk. There's no such thing as a natural beauty in the entertainment industry. I think that Yun Shishir also looks like she came from a plastic surgery background. Yun Shishir was a little doubtful. Are they really that alike? Hua Jin pondered. Although the facial features are a little different, the foundation is very similar. Do you have her makeup photos? No, I didn't save them. Hua Jin asked again, "Isn't she coming soon?" As soon as his voice fell, a staff member came over with a gorgeously dressed woman. Yun Shishir fixed her eyes on the woman, and her heart skipped a beat. She couldn't help but widen her eyes in shock and let out an ah in disbelief. Seeing the look of surprise on her face, Hua Jin followed her gaze and saw Ji Yan walking over closely behind the staff member. "That's her," he said. "She's Ji Yan?" Yun Shishir asked in astonishment. Hua Jin nodded. "Yes. Do you also think that she looks very similar to Yan Bingqing?" "Yes. Not just a little, but they really look alike." Yun Shishir carefully observed her for a long time. Indeed, the foundation was exactly the same except for a few differences. This Ji Yan's eyes were bigger, and the inner and outer corners of her eyes were opened. Her nose seemed to be a little higher, and her chin seemed to be sharper, probably because she had undergone bone-grinding surgery. But in this way, although she was beautiful, she was not as elegant as Yan Bingqing's original temperament. Yan Bingqing's appearance was very outstanding. She had big eyes, bright eyes, red lips, and white teeth. Her face was rich in collagen, and the curve of her jaw was not round, but it was not sharp either. She had the elegant aura of a queen, and her every movement was graceful. However, if this was really Yan Bingqing after the plastic surgery, her face had become sharp, but her face was like a product on the assembly line. There was no recognition at all, just like those young models on the internet. Although they looked younger and more beautiful, they just lacked a temperament. Yun Shishir could not help but suspect the identity of this woman named Ji Yan in front of her. She really does look like Yan Bingqing. It was no wonder that the netizens were suspicious. She also felt that Yan Bingqing was 99% similar. When Yun Shishir looked at her, the woman looked at her too. Two pairs of eyes collided in the air. Yun Shishir could not help but be startled. She saw Ji Yan walking toward the director with a pair of enchanting eyes that vaguely revealed a ruthless and cold light. However, it was only a brief collision and Ji Yan quickly withdrew her gaze. Yun Shishir, on the other hand, was shocked. "It's her." Yun Shishir repeatedly recalled the gaze that Ji Yan threw her just now with lingering fear. It was ruthless and cold, like a sharp sword that wanted to pierce through her. Seeing her pale face, Hua Jin asked in confusion, "Shishir, what's wrong? This Ji Yan might be Yan Bingqing herself. How can you be so sure? That gaze can't be wrong." Chapter 2444. That gaze, it can't be wrong. It was full of bone-deep hatred, as if she wanted to tear her into pieces. Yun Shishir immediately asked the staff, "Is that Ji Yan Yan Bingqing?" "Yan Bingqing?" The staff widened his eyes and shook his head quickly. "No, you're not." Yun Shishir was surprised. "Although I also think that Ji Yan and Yan Bingqing look quite similar, they are indeed not Yan Bingqing. Wasn't Yan Bingqing banned before? This Ji Yan probably had plastic surgery to look like Yan Bingqing, right?" Her stage name even has the word yen in it. Let me guess. The staff whispered in her ear, I'm guessing that she must have had plastic surgery to look like Yen Bingqing and hooked up with a sugar daddy. I heard that she didn't even have to audition before she directly squeezed out a B-list actress and landed in the production team. There are a lot of good newcomers these days. Hua Jin was also a little surprised. She's not Yen Bingqing? The staff nodded and said disapprovingly, yes. If she's Yen Bingqing, she's so beautiful and yet she still went under the knife. Isn't she sick? How is that possible? Hua Jin obviously didn't believe it. The facial features are very similar. The staff member smiled and then sighed. Don't underestimate plastic surgery. After saying that, he immediately went back to work as he had other things to do. Yun Shishir and Hua Jin looked at each other. After the opening ceremony, Hua Jin pestered Yun Shishir to play mahjong. Let's go. Shishir, let's play mahjong. Yun Shishir said gloomily, you seem to be very energetic today. Don't you like mahjong? I don't like it. Yun Shishir made an X gesture. I refuse to gamble. I don't gamble. Who else is there besides you and me? Yun Shishir's question left Hua Jin at a loss. Qinzhou. No. Hua Jin had just dialed Qinzhou's number to express his intentions when he immediately rejected, I'm not interested in mahjong. Lord Qinzhou. Beep beep beep. The call was cut off. Hua Jin frowned as he held the phone in his hand. Yun Shishir patted his shoulders sympathetically. Let's go home. No. Hua Jin suddenly suggested, let's play mahjong at your place. Hua Jin suddenly thought of something and asked with a pale face, is the Great Demon King here? What Great Demon King? It's. Hua Jin said nervously, your brother? Yun Shishir burst out laughing. She immediately thought of the two of them who were in a sorry state because they lost in a game of Fight the Landlord on New Year's Eve. It seemed that Hua Jin was traumatized by Gong Jie. Before meeting Gong Jie, she had always thought that Hua Jin was a complete little demon king. She did not expect that he would be subdued by Gong Jie. Gong Jie was the real Great Demon King. After being pestered by Hua Jin, Yun Shishir finally agreed. When the two of them reached home, Mu Yaja was not home yet. Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen were at home. Yun Shishir raised her eyebrows suspiciously and asked, when does school start? Stupid mommy, didn't I tell you? It's next Monday. Oh, that means school starts in 4 days. Okay. Chapter 24:45. Yeah. Hua Jin walked over and squatted down in front of him. He pulled him into his arms and said teasingly, the opening ceremony for the new drama ended this morning, so I came to play with you. What do you want to play? Do you know how to play mahjong? Yes. Yu Yu paused and glanced at him in disdain. But Mu Yichen doesn't know how to play mahjong. 3 people can't play. Hua Jin was instantly troubled. That's right. We can't play mahjong with 3 people. Yu Yu asked Mu Yichen, do you know how to play mahjong? Xiao Yichen sipped on his yogurt and shook his head blankly. No. Yun Shishir suddenly thought of someone. I thought of someone. It's convenient for me to come over. Who is it? Yun Shishir found the phone book, took out a business card and dialed the number. When the call went through, she smiled and said, Junimo, I'm Shishir. Are you busy now? Is Shishir. Junmo's neutral and deep voice came from the other end. She replied gently, I'm not busy. What's up? Where are you? At home. Ah, what a coincidence. Do you like to play mahjong? We're short of 1 player. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Yun Shishir ran over to open the door and saw Junimo standing at the door. When she saw her, she smiled and greeted her. Long time no see. Yun Shishir welcomed her in. Yes. Junimo, long time no see. Junimo recalled. Speaking of which, the last time we met was at the celebration party for The Green Apple. Speaking of The Green Apple, in fact, Junimo had played the male supporting role in the movie. During the screening process, there were many discussions about this role among netizens. After all, it was rare for an actress to play a male role. At most, some dramas adapted from Chinese opera would use the role of the female lead. Very few mainstream commercial movies would do this. Qinzhou took a risk. But it had to be said that although Junmo's acting skills were inexperienced, her emotions were immersed in the movie and she played the role of the supporting actor with the kind of feeling that the audience was looking forward to. In addition, her looks were outstanding. She had good looks that many young actors couldn't match. Her facial features were handsome, and she had an elegant and gentle temperament. After the movie was released, apart from Yin Xiachuan and Yin Dongyu, her role was also very eye-catching. It set off a trend of androgyny. Many girls imitated her style of dress, hairstyle and makeup. Recently he had taken on many movies. What surprised Yoon Shirshir the most was that she actually accepted a spy movie, Oriole Behind. This movie was produced by Central Pictures and was made up of veteran actors. As the only rookie in the cast, Jun Mo's performance was highly anticipated by the media. As soon as Jun Mo arrived, everyone was present. The four of them sat down to play mahjong. When Xiao Yichen saw that they were playing mahjong, he didn't want to watch TV anymore. He put the TV aside and went over to Yoon Shirshir's side to watch the game quietly. The four of them chatted as they played mahjong. Hua Jin and Jun Mo had acted in a television drama together before. The two of them got along well in the production team. Hua Jin had a good impression of Jun Mo, so they got along very well. Hua Jin and Jun Mo were both very addicted to smoking. When their cards were good, they would smoke a cigarette. When their cards were bad, they would smoke another cigarette. Fortunately, Yu and Xiao Yichen didn't mind. At most, they would avoid the two of them and grumble, "You're so addicted to smoking." When Jun Mo heard this, she immediately apologized, "I'm sorry." Hua Jin also stopped smoking. Chapter 2446. However, Yu said, "It's okay. There's no pregnant woman here." Jun Mo couldn't help but laugh. "You know that pregnant women can't smell smoke?" "Yes." Yu cursed silently in his heart. Had he seriously checked the information? Back then, he thought that his mommy was pregnant, so he did a lot of research. In the end, she wasn't pregnant, and he was even depressed for a period of time. Hua Jin muttered as he played mahjong, "Today is the opening ceremony of the new drama. Gu Xingze is making a comeback." Yoon Shirshir's hand froze in the middle of picking the cards. She lifted her gaze to glance at the idol before lowering her head again to sort the cards. East wind. Hua Jin also threw a east wind and said, "If it weren't for him, the male lead of this drama would have been me." In the end, Gu Xingze came out of nowhere and intercepted me. Jun Mo mercilessly exposed him. The investors of this drama liked Gu Xingze to begin with. How can you say that he intercepted me? I can't accept it. Why can he and Shirshir be nominated as the best on-screen couple? Shirshir and I are more compatible. Yoon Shirshir's lips twitched. Jun Mo continued to expose her. Compared to Xingze, you're far inferior. The actresses who acted with him became famous. I'm not convinced. Jun Mo suddenly thought of something and silently sized up Yoon Shirshir. Then she said, "Some time ago, I saw Xingze with a woman who looked very similar to Shirshir." Yoon Shirshir was stunned. She looked up and said blankly, "Huh? A woman who looks like me?" Jun Mo said, "I thought it was you. That woman really looks like you. Judging from her figure, she's probably a young model. However, although her facial features are similar, it's obvious that she's undergone surgery." This news was even on the news. Yoon Shirshir was shocked. "Could you have seen wrongly?" I went up to greet him. Yoon Shirshir widened her eyes in surprise. Jun Mo explained, "Because I got along well with Xingze on set, I saw him and went up to greet him. That's why I saw that woman up close and dispelled my suspicions. Although they were similar, there were still some differences. After all, no matter how brilliant the plastic surgery is, it's impossible to perfectly replicate a person." Oh. Yoon Shirshir's expression remained calm. Xingze has always had very few scandals in the industry, and there's rarely any gossip. Indeed, that's why I was very surprised when I saw him and that woman coming out of the hotel. As far as I can remember, he never had any women around him. Hotel. Yoon Shirshir's fingertips trembled slightly, but her eyes quickly regained their calmness and concealed the trace of surprise. Hotel. It was hard for people not to exaggerate when he walked in and out of the hotel with a woman in his arms. Coming out of the hotel, what else could it be? Yoon Shirshir suddenly furrowed her brows and felt a little uncomfortable. It wasn't that she felt unbalanced, but she heard from Jun Mo that the woman was a young model and had obviously undergone plastic surgery. In her heart, Gu Xingze was perfect, like a Prince Charming, and could not be tarnished. The young model industry was very messy. In order to climb up the ranks, those young models would do anything to climb up. Could this young model have used Gu Xingze as a springboard to climb up the ranks? Did Gu Xingze have feelings for her? Chapter 2447. Just as Yoon Shirshir was letting her imagination run wild, she heard Hua Jin say disapprovingly, "After all, men have their biological needs too. As a popular idol, it's impossible for him to have a girlfriend openly. Gu Xingze is a normal man, so of course he has his biological needs. I've always been surprised that he hasn't had any scandals in the industry. I thought he was an immortal who didn't belong to the mortal world. I didn't expect him to be an ordinary man. Yun Shishir picked her cards silently. But she didn't agree with Hua Jin's words. That wasn't the case. Gu Xingze wasn't an ordinary man. Junimo said quietly, actually, I'm not surprised. Maybe Gu Xingze is also serious. Can't celebrities have private lives? Yun Shishir suddenly said gloomily, even if he has a girlfriend, he shouldn't be restricted. Hua Jin said, of course celebrities can have private lives. As long as it's not exposed to the public, especially idols, hardcore fans won't be able to stand it. Just like you. You're very popular now, but if news of your marriage is exposed, it will affect your career. Affect? Yes. You can act as a young girl in idol dramas now, but if you get married and have children, the fans will feel awkward and find it difficult to get into character. Hua Jin, does the company have requirements for you too? Yun Shishir suddenly asked curiously. Of course. In the past it was explicitly stated that dating was not allowed. Hua Jin said, this restriction is even stricter for male celebrities. The company absolutely forbids me from dating. Previously, when Gu Xingze and a female celebrity were involved in a scandal, a fan jumped off a building to commit suicide. This piece of news was sensational at the time and caused a huge uproar. The anti-fans on the internet were all denouncing Gu Xingze. In the end, the superstar stepped forward to issue an apology and clarify the scandal. That poor fan actually jumped off a building to commit suicide because of a scandal. It's not worth it. Junimo said, Gu Xingze's fan army is very scary. I'm really surprised that you can become popular, Shishir. Maybe it's because you're more likable. In the past, Gu Xingze was rumored to have had plastic surgery on their faces. Although they were pretty, they looked mean and unlikable. Your character in the movie is more likable, so there aren't many haters. Yun Shishir said in a daze, it's really tough being a celebrity. Xingze? In the hotel, Gu Xingze was wearing a bathrobe. He sat on the sofa and read his script silently. A pretty woman walked out of the bathroom and called out to him softly, but seeing that he was indifferent, she immediately came to his side, put his script aside, straddled him, lifted his chin and said unhappily, are you still reading your script? You've been looking at it for the whole afternoon, and you're ignoring me even when I talk to you. Gu Xingze did not seem to be annoyed by her coquettish behavior. He lifted his eyes and looked at her beautiful face. Her facial features and eyebrows were extremely similar to Yun Shishir's. Especially the contours, it was like a carbon copy. He held her chin and kissed it gently. He raised his eyebrows and asked, what's wrong? I just feel bored. The woman wrapped her arms around his shoulders and snuggled up to him coquettishly. You've been reading your script and ignoring me. Of course I feel bored. Chapter 2448. Gu Xingze lowered his head expressionlessly and kissed her lips. However, no matter how much he kissed her, he felt that it was tasteless. There was no feeling. It was as if he was chewing wax. Just as the woman was anticipating his next move, his kiss came to an abrupt end. Gu Xingze pushed her away gently and took the script. He flipped to the page that he had marked earlier and started reading it again. The woman seemed to have read his mind and stopped fooling around. She sat down obediently and leaned on his shoulder. She asked curiously, are you acting as a racer in the new drama? Yeah. I heard that you're a racer, so your driving skills should be pretty good. Gu Xingze flipped to the next page silently. His attitude was very indifferent. The woman seemed to have noticed his indifferent attitude and frowned in disappointment. She knew very well in her heart that after this night, their relationship would come to an end. She met Gu Xingze at a private party. The atmosphere in the pub was lively and abnormally noisy. Men and women were indulging in debauchery. However, he was the only one who sat quietly in the corner. He didn't drink or participate in the hubbub. He only looked at the stage silently with a cold expression. At that time she had just debuted. The company saw that she looked like Yun Shishir and arranged for her to undergo plastic surgery. The plastic surgeon adjusted her facial features according to Yun Shishir's model. Hence, she immediately caught his attention at that party. He was the Prince Charming in her heart and also her first man. However, the process was like a moth flying into a flame. She threw herself at him passionately without any complaints or regrets. However, she realized that from the beginning to the end, she was just a substitute. What he was searching for in her was the shadow of another woman. That shadow was probably Yun Shishir, right? She had watched the movie The Green Apple, and felt that Gu Xingze's so-called acting was just a show of his true feelings. Acting could be deceiving, but the feelings in his eyes could not be. There was no pretense. All the affection seemed to be able to penetrate a person's soul. She was envious, extremely envious. More than once, he caressed her face and looked at her, but it was as if he was looking at another woman through her. She felt like a substitute, but she was also immersed in this relationship. At the beginning of their relationship, it was just that each of them had their own needs. She wanted to get some resources, but he was just looking for comfort from her. She could tell that he was very lonely. Whether it was physical or psychological, after being suppressed for so long, it was as if he was sick. However, even though it was hard to control his emotions, he still had to control them well. From the beginning he had said, "Don't get too immersed in the role. Everyone just wants what they want." She knew in her heart that he had no feelings for her. When he kissed her just now, she seemed to feel his helplessness and disappointment from that ambiguous kiss. She also felt that this relationship had finally reached its climax. Until midnight he was still reading the script. It was as if he did not feel tired at all. Or perhaps he had put all his energy into the script. That way he would feel less tired. The woman knew very well that everything should end here. Chapter 24:49. She knew very well that no matter how much she messed around, she would never get what she really wanted. Hence, she stood up and obediently entered the room. She tactfully put on her clothes and carried her bag. When she walked out, Gu Xingze was still reading the script. However, there was an extra check on the coffee table. She walked over and picked up the check. It was a heart-wrenching number. The woman smiled and thanked him gratefully. "Thank you." Gu Xingze quietly flipped a page with a cold expression. She suddenly walked over and hugged him gently. She asked softly, "Xingze, you love that woman very much, don't you?" She did not say the name of the woman called Yun Shirshir. Gu Xingze finally looked away from the script. He looked up and his eyes were twinkling. "If you like her, why don't you be together with her?" The woman was curious. With his charm, what woman would not succumb to his tenderness? Gu Xingze stared at her for a long time and finally said, "I can give her everything, but I can't love her." He could give her everything, but he could not love her. Why? The woman did not understand and was extremely surprised. Gu Xingze smiled mockingly. "Because it will only make her suffer." The woman opened her mouth in shock and frowned. Her heart ached. She looked at him and did not say anything. She quietly put the check into her bag and turned to leave without saying a word. Gu Xingze looked at the script and highlighted the key points. The plot was that after the female lead found out that the male lead's father was the one who had caused her father's downfall, she painfully confessed to the male lead. "Please don't love me. Your love will only make me suffer. Let go, please let go." He closed the script and closed his eyes slightly. His eyelashes trembled slightly. The woman lowered her head and left the hotel. Little did she know that when she opened the hotel door, the paparazzi who were hiding dozens of meters away raised their cameras and snapped a few shots of her leaving. However, she was completely unaware of it. She waved her hand, got into a taxi and left. After she left, the man raised his camera and flipped through the images he had just taken. He laughed joyfully. "Okay, time to pack up. Go back and submit your manuscript." The next day, a set of photos was exposed on Weibo, causing a great sensation. On Qingguang Entertainment's official Weibo, a group of photos were published. There were a total of 6 still photos and 3 moving pictures. Among them, there were a few photos of Gu Xingze walking into a hotel with a woman in his arms. After zooming in, the woman's back was facing him, so it was difficult to recognize her face. However, Gu Xingze's facial features were especially recognizable. It was easy to recognize that it was Gu Xingze himself. There were a few pictures of a woman leaving the hotel alone, getting into a taxi and leaving. There were also 3 gifts from the hotel's surveillance cameras. Gu Xingze entered the room with the woman in his arms. 5 hours later, the woman left alone. 2 of the photos captured the woman's face. Although the images were blurry, the woman's basic outline could still be recognized. Wasn't this Yun Shirshir? Once the photos were published, it immediately caused a huge uproar. Many fans were shocked by Gu Xingze's shocking scandal. This set of photos quickly became a hot topic. Chapter 2450. Breaking news. Orange Light Studio exposed lucky couple's secret relationship, leaving alone after 5 hours of tryst, extremely loving. The fans were extremely concerned about the so-called relationship that had been exposed. Of course, there were 2 groups of fans. One group supported the lucky couple's relationship. At the same time, they complained that the company must have written rules and regulations that forbade celebrities from dating. But if it's Yun Shirshir, we really don't mind. Please love to your heart's content. The lucky couple is so loving. I've been following them since The Love Diary. Although I'm not a diehard fan of Gu Xingze, I feel that as a boyfriend he must be a great boyfriend. I also like Yun Shirshir because they went to watch The Green Apple, and unexpectedly felt that they were a good match. A perfect match. The other group were Gu Xingze's diehard fans. After hearing the news, they went to Yun Shishir's Weibo to make a fuss. Vixen. Seducing our master Xingze. She must be trying to use Xingze's name to hype herself up. Shameless. That's right. Vixen, please keep yourself clean. Gu Xingze is our husband, please know what's good for you and get lost. Yun Shishir woke up early because her schedule was packed. She had to rush for an interview in the morning, shoot a pictorial in the afternoon, and film a variety show in the evening. However, as she rinsed her mouth, she scrolled through Weibo. When she saw the trending topic, Gu Xingze's relationship, she clicked on it out of curiosity. She thought that it was just idle gossip among fans, but she didn't expect to see a set of photos. Gu Xingze and woman met in a hotel at night. After 5 hours of intimacy, the woman left alone. The mysterious woman is actually Yun Shishir? The lucky couple relationship is confirmed. Yun Shishir spat a mouthful of mouthwash on the mirror. Her eyes widened as she clicked on the photos one by one. Although the pixels were blurry, it wasn't difficult to recognize that this woman's facial features were indeed very similar to hers. If she wasn't in person, she would definitely think that this was Yun Shishir. Most importantly, she was just lying down at home last night. How could she be shot like this? She clicked on the other photos and saw the surveillance footage of the woman holding Gu Xingze's arm as they walked into the private room of the hotel. She frowned and was a little surprised. Qinzhou suddenly called. As soon as she answered the call, Qinzhou shouted her name furiously, Shishir. Yun Shishir couldn't help but hold the phone a little further away. This sound almost broke her eardrums. Why are you so angry so early in the morning? Where were you last night? Qinzhou went straight to the point. Yun Shishir said gloomily, I'm at home. Then, can you explain what's going on with the news on Weibo? Qinzhou obviously recognized her as the woman. Because they were too alike. Yun Shishir said with a long face, I saw that Weibo post too. It really wasn't me. Great Qin, I've been wronged. It's not you? Qinzhou quickly calmed down, but he still asked suspiciously, Are you sure? Of course. Do you want to get a witness? Qinzhou said. There's no need. Then, what's going on with those photos? I really don't know. Yun Shishir immediately said, I was obediently reading the script at home last night. After reading it, I went to bed. My husband can testify. Chapter 2451. I'll go and verify the situation. Beep beep beep, the guy hung up very quickly. She reckoned that he had gone to look for Gu Xingze to verify the situation. Yun Shishir sighed. She wiped the water off the glass and took another mouthful of mouthwash. Bam! Yu burst through the door. She raised her cell phone and rushed in with tears in her eyes. Mommy, did you cheat on me? Yun Shishir spat out another mouthful of mouthwash in shock. She turned around in embarrassment and saw Yu holding her cell phone. She walked over with a pained expression. Mommy, did you go out behind Daddy's back last night? Yun Shishir stared at him silently. Yu was bawling her eyes out. She raised her cell phone in front of her and said with tears in her eyes, Don't tell me that you went to the hotel with Gu Xingze to read the script. Early in the morning, the cell phone received a notification. Because he followed Yun Shishir's Weibo, the trending topic was sent to him very quickly. Yu was shocked when she saw the notification. She rushed over with her cell phone. That's not me. Yun Shishir explained helplessly, Idiot, take a good look. Is the woman in the photo your dearest mommy? Yu looked at the photo suspiciously and suddenly said, That's right. Dong, Yun Shishir gave him a knock on the head. How can you mistake your dearest mommy for someone else? I'm so disappointed in Yu. Yu immediately looked at her cell phone again and again. She finally sighed and patted her chest gently. She was so agitated that she almost burst into tears. You scared me. I saw wrongly. That's not mommy in the photo. Mommy's legs aren't that short. You actually suspect that your mommy is having an affair with another man? Yun Shishir's gaze was dangerous and sinister. Yu immediately hugged his mother's long legs and explained, Mommy, Yu knows he was wrong. Yu just woke up, so the diffraction isn't good. Yun Shishir elegantly wiped her face with a towel and snorted arrogantly. What's the point of explaining now? Men drag him out and behead him. Yu hugged her and explained to her. Suddenly, he said curiously, But this woman looks so much like mommy. Did she get plastic surgery to look like mommy? Who knows? I don't care. Yun Shishir slapped his chubby hands away. Get out of the way. Mommy won't make it in time. As soon as she walked out of the bathroom, Yu followed behind her eagerly and asked eagerly, "Mommy, do you have work today?" "Yes, it's full." "Then I'll prepare breakfast for Mommy." "It's okay. I don't have time." Yun Shirshir took a sandwich from the fridge and heated it up. Yu passed her a glass of warm milk. "Be good and stay at home with Xiaoyichen. Don't bully your brother. Remember to wake Daddy up for work later." "Oh, got it." Yu watched as Yun Shirshir left. In the room, Xiaoyichen also rushed out with his cell phone. However, he saw Yu standing at the entrance. When he turned around, the two little lads looked at each other. "Where's Mommy?" "She went to work." "Ah." Xiaoyichen leaned over and asked worriedly, "Have you seen Weibo?" "What?" "This?" Xiaoyichen immediately put the cell phone in front of him. Yu glanced at it and his face suddenly turned cold. Chapter 2452. What should we do? Could the woman in the photo be Mommy? Yu slapped his face speechlessly and pushed him away. "You can't even recognize your own Mommy. Drag him out and behead him." With that, he turned around and walked away, seemingly forgetting that he had mistaken his own Mommy for someone else. When Xiaoyichen heard this, he came to his senses and pestered him. "I knew it. Mommy would never meet another man behind Daddy's back. But, this woman really looks like Mommy." When Yu heard this, he suddenly turned to face him and raised his eyebrows. "You think they look alike too?" "Yeah. Very alike. Very alike." I broke out in a cold sweat just looking at them. Yu furrowed his eyebrows worriedly. Indeed, the resemblance was too great. If this matter blew up, it would not be good for Mommy. Yu rubbed his chin and muttered, "I don't know where this woman came from, but judging from her figure, she looks like a young model in the internet celebrity circle. Maybe it's just like Mommy's face." "Plastic surgery? Alright. Why didn't I think of that?" Xiaoyichen slapped his head in frustration and said gloomily, "I forgot that there's such a thing as plastic surgery. Didn't Brother Huajin say yesterday that he saw Gu Xingze entering a hotel with a woman? Maybe it's this woman." Yu stopped abruptly. Xiaoyichen did not know, but he knew that Gu Xingze seemed to be deeply in love with Mommy. Could it be Huanyu Building? In Ji Lin's office. Qin Zhou threw a stack of documents on the table. His face was ashen. "Xingze, this rascal, he's simply messing around." Ji Lin leaned back in his chair and sized him up calmly. He asked, "Have you found out about this woman?" "Yeah, according to the information, she's a young model who just debuted. Her name is something like Li Xian, or Tiske. What a gaudy name." Qin Zhou sat down on the sofa with his legs crossed. After a moment of silence, he said, "I've found her information, including some information about her background." "Which agency did she sign with?" Qin Zhou replied in disdain, "Ease is a modeling agency backed by American Airlines. On the surface, it sounds dignified, but in reality, it's just a sex agency. Most of the models signed by it are high-class public relations professionals who specialize in signing peripheral girls. The average cost is 50,000 yuan per night." The company's official website put the photos of these models on the homepage. On the surface, it was to show off their style, but in reality, these models were clearly priced. High-class prostitute? Not entirely. However, most of them were in the mud. This Li Xian just debuted not long ago. I don't know what methods she used to get close to Xingzhe. I don't know what her motive is. Is this model clean? It's pretty clean. He's just entered the industry and doesn't know anything. Now that this has happened, he's probably scared out of his wits. Thinking of this, Qin Zhou was furious. Had Gu Xingze fallen? How could he play with a young model? Although this young model had just debuted and was considered clean, he couldn't just mess around with a face that was specially made to look like Yun Shirshir. When did he become so frivolous? Now that this incident has happened, I'm in a bit of a dilemma. I don't know if I should clarify or not. Incident? Chapter 2453. What do you mean? Look at the photos that were taken secretly. Although it's a little blurry, if they didn't know their whereabouts beforehand, they definitely wouldn't have been able to take such a clear shot of their faces. If I'm not wrong, this paparazzi was probably hired by Ease. Qin Zhou was slightly taken aback when he heard this. He sighed and said, I'm also worried about this. Ji Lin gently knocked on the table and said expressionlessly, if this entertainment company is smart, they will probably bribe the media and create a series of articles. There were two ways to create hype in the entertainment industry. The first way was to tie up relationships or create hype with topics. For example, previously, there was a celebrity couple who spent a huge sum of 200 million on their wedding. The wedding was so grand that it was comparable to the wedding of a royal family. It was called the wedding of the century. But in reality, Many of the 200 million wedding were sponsored by investors. They valued the celebrity couple's influence and wanted to create a big scene. The more famous the couple was, the more money the investors would make. Not only did this couple not invest much in the wedding, but they also used the wedding to create hype. The female celebrity directly became an A-lister and her popularity soared. The wedding was hyped up until the end of the wedding. The couple used the remaining effects to create hype for a month. Many people were envious and called the man the perfect husband. They were extremely envious of the female lead. Both parties benefited from the wedding. The audience was the ones who were fooled. The other way to create hype was to use one's own negative reputation to create hype. Jilin and Qin Zhou were a little worried. They were worried that this young model named Li Xianer would be manipulated by the company. They were worried that Yun Shirshir would be used as a springboard to create hype with the fame of little Yun Shirshir. Not only that, they could also use the exposure of the hotel door scandal to create hype with Gu Xingza's influence. When Yun Shirshir arrived at the company, Qin Zhou and Jilin summoned her to the director's office. In the office, a few key personnel from the public relations department were also present. Everyone was on high alert and the atmosphere was tense. She was scared out of her wits when she saw this scene. What happened? Qin Zhou glanced at her and said in annoyance, "Shirshir, the hotel incident between you and Xingzha has already caused a ruckus on Weibo, yet you're still so calm. It's really the case that the eunuchs are more worried than the emperor." Yun Shirshir didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Isn't the woman in the photo me? Haven't you issued a clarification statement yet?" Qin Zhou said gloomily, "Clarify?" Right now it was no longer a question of whether or not to clarify. Now I would rather you be the heroine of this story. You've been checkmated, do you know that? Yun Shirshir was stunned and looked at him blankly. When I saw that Weibo post this morning, to be honest, I was also very surprised. I don't know if this woman had plastic surgery, but her face is very similar to mine. After a pause, she continued, "Even if she came out of the hotel, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's something going on between her and Xingzha, right? She came out of the hotel alone, but that's not important. The point is, she walked into the hotel with her arm around Xingzha's arm. This was also captured by the media and is now the talk of the town." Chapter 2454. Then, what should we do now? We'll bide our time for now. Let's see if the technical department can find the information I want. What information? Jilin suddenly said, "The photos of this woman before her plastic surgery." Qin Zhou suddenly urged, "Anyway, don't panic. You still have to prepare for an interview in the morning, so go and do your makeup first." Yun Shirshir nodded and turned to leave. Just as she left, Mu Shi suddenly rushed in and raised the tablet to the manager, saying indignantly, "Boss Qin, Li Xianer opened her Weibo account 5 minutes ago and posted a photo of herself along with a statement." He hurriedly took the tablet from her. The image on the tablet stopped at Li Xianer's Weibo. In just 5 minutes, the company had already given her a verified title. It seemed that the company had been planning this for a long time. "Model? Actress?" Qin Zhou asked doubtfully. "Actress? Had she ever acted before?" The highlight was the newly posted Weibo post. She had posted a photo which was strangely familiar. Yun Shirshir had done a similar photo shoot before. This Li Xianer had probably imitated Yun Shirshir's photo shoot. It seemed that she was trying to imitate Yun Shirshir's style to the end. The photo was indeed in the style of a flower fairy. The pink dress she was wearing was exactly the same as the one Yun Shirshir had done before. Even the flower crown on her head was the same. Not only that, the composition, rendering, posture, and even expression were exactly the same. Only the background was slightly different, but the style was still the same. The announcement she had posted and a series of statements openly admitted that she was the real female lead of the hotel door. Although her words were high-sounding in the statement, she only admitted that she and Gu Xingzha were friends and that they had only chatted in the hotel and did nothing else. Putting aside what had happened between her and Gu Xingzha for the time being, the two of them had entered the hotel together. Her statement would only make it seem that she was trying to cover it up, and the public would only interpret it as a deliberate cover-up. The wording of the statement was extremely innocent and aggrieved. The style of a living white lotus was vivid on paper. The fans were quite shocked when they heard this news. Gosh. It turned out that the female lead of this incident wasn't Yun Shirshir but someone else. Where did this Li Xianer come from though? They had never heard of her. A nameless model with certification as an actress and model. More importantly, she had not appeared in any films or TV shows. She didn't even have a supporting role. At this point, the fans felt unbalanced. They suddenly regretted it. They would rather the female lead of this incident was Yun Shishir than this woman of unknown origin. What was even more infuriating was that Li Xiang insisted that she did not have plastic surgery, nor did she copy Yun Shishir's looks. Her looks were natural, and she even hinted that the reason why the two looked alike was probably due to Yun Shishir's plastic surgery, which resulted in them coincidentally meeting each other's looks. Shameless. Sure enough, within minutes of the Weibo post being posted, the number of comments and reposts had exceeded 10,000. Many fans of Yun Shishir and Gu Xingze ran to the Weibo comments section to curse. But this was the effect that ease wanted. Chapter 2455. This was also one of the tricks used to create hype. First, they would use a black mark to create hype and attract attention. Once they became famous, they would use other means to appear innocent and pitiful on shows to clear their names. Usually the audience would not be hostile to beautiful people. Hence, the prettier a female artiste was, the easier it was for them to clear their names. However, Qingzhou quickly calmed down. Having been in this industry for so long, he had seen all kinds of storms. He had seen too many of such tricks, so he did not find it strange. Mu Shi, on the other hand, was furious. When she saw Li Xianer open a Weibo account, she was so angry that she almost smashed her tablet. How shameless. This woman is simply a white lotus. She clearly had plastic surgery based on Yun Shishir's features, yet this woman still refuses to admit it. Not only does she refuse to admit it, but she even opened a Weibo account and posted a statement. It's obvious that she wants to use Shishir to create hype. Shishir alone is not enough. She even wants to drag Xingze into this and create hype together. She's aiming for Xingze and Shishir's popularity. I'm about to die from anger. The corners of Qingzhou's lips twitched as his facial muscles stiffened. Xingze, that rascal is too ridiculous. Mu Shi asked curiously, is there any reaction from Xingze's side? Is there any movement from his studio? Qingzhou said coldly, Xingze must remain silent. This is the best way to deal with this crisis. He must deal with scandals that are unfavorable to him coldly. The more he tries to explain and clarify, the more chaotic it will be. As an Idol's fan, the fans hope to see Gu Xingze, the person involved in this incident, stand up and give an explanation. However, this explanation can only be valid. Now that Gu Xingze can't give a valid explanation, he can only remain silent. Otherwise, the situation will be even more chaotic. I'm so angry. Mu Shi was about to cry from anger. I've never seen such a shameless woman. In this circle, there are many shameless people. Then what should we do next? Mu Shi huffed. Don't tell me we're just going to let this woman use Shishir to create hype? Judging from the other company's stance, it's obvious that they're not letting go of Shishir. Qingzhou also found it troublesome. Although Shishir is not a A-lister now, she's very popular. If she's involved with this woman, it'll only appear degrading. That's why we're not making any moves for now and see how things will develop. That's too. I was bitten by a dog while walking. If I bite it back, it will be very degrading. After Yun's interview with Yun Shishir. However, after they sat down and exchanged a few pleasantries, the editor went straight to the point and brought up Li Xiang. Shishir, what do you think of Li Xiang? You don't know about this? The editor was very surprised. This morning, Qinghuang Entertainment published a set of photos on Weibo. The model who went in and out of the hotel with Gu Xingze is called Li Xianer. Oh. Yun Shishir nodded. Frowning slightly, she calmly asked, may I ask if this matter has anything to do with this interview? Chapter 2456. The editor was slightly embarrassed and said, you and Xingzhe were voted as the most popular on-screen couple. Previously, during the filming of The Love Diary, the fans have been talking about your chemistry with Xingzhe. The lucky couple is very popular, isn't it? Even I think that you and Xingzhe are a good match. You've also mentioned that on-screen couple is only on-screen, so there's no need to magnify it to reality. Xingzhe is a very outstanding senior. As a junior, I have no right to comment on his personal life. If Li Xianer is his lover, I'll also give them my sincere blessings. His flawless answer left everyone dumbfounded. Mu Shi smiled from the side. Let's put this topic aside for now. The main topic of today's interview is Shishir's new drama and Lethal Beauty, which is about to be broadcasted on major satellite channels. Let's skip some irrelevant topics. Despite the editor's dissatisfaction, he had no choice but to put this topic aside. After the interview, Mu Shi said unhappily, Shishir, I really feel aggrieved for you. That Li Xianer is using you as a springboard to hype herself up. I really can't take it lying down. This is the industry. If you want to establish yourself, you have to learn to face these unspoken rules. With that, she added, we still have a pictorial shoot in the afternoon. Let's go for lunch. Yun Shishir made an appointment with Qin Zhou and Ji Lin, and the four of them went to a restaurant next to the company for lunch. The atmosphere was low during the meal. Qin Zhou was still scrolling through Weibo, his expression ugly. Even Ji Lin, who had always been exceptionally calm, had his brows tightly knitted together. Clearly, the current situation was not optimistic. Yun Shishir ordered noodles, but she kept fiddling with the noodles in her bowl with her chopsticks as if she was chewing wax. Weibo was in an uproar. Li Xian'er's Weibo post this morning had already reached 150,000 comments. There were countless scolding below, but Li Xian'er seemed indifferent and did not make any further comments. This was also a common method of creating hype. The more one did not make a statement, the more attention and anger they would attract. Mushi was a little worried. How long will this situation last? Qin Zhou drank a glass of wine in annoyance and put his phone aside. I'm not afraid of ruthless people, but I'm afraid of shameless people. This was the truth. Ji Lin said, let's put this matter aside for now. Take care of yourself. Later we'll think of some countermeasures. Qin Zhou pondered for a moment and suddenly said, however, if Li Xian'er insists on creating hype, I don't mind playing along. A glimmer of hope appeared on her face. What do you mean? Qin Zhou replied, she will definitely be using Shishir to create hype. Similarly, Shishir will also be using her to create more exposure. Yun Shishir was silent for a long time. Suddenly, she swallowed a mouthful of noodles and sighed. When Gu Xingze arrived at the studio, it was in a state of chaos. Upon seeing him, they greeted him with trepidation. Master Gu. After he terminated his contract with Qin Zhou, he set up his own studio. Before he came back because he was banned, many veterans left. Therefore, the public relations aspect of the crisis was extremely weak. Until now, these guys still hadn't come up with a complete plan. Chapter 2457. Gu Xingze was also clear that there was a team behind this. Li Xian'er's company also wanted to make use of this incident to create hype. It was not easy for a modeling company to produce a celebrity. Most of them were not popular. If the transition was successful, they might be able to get a small role in a script. If the transition was not successful, they could only become the playthings of those rich people. Once the shelf life was over, they could only be eliminated. Some of them would marry rich businessmen and some would leave the industry. It was not easy to produce Li Xian'er. He went to his office and closed the door. He suddenly felt upset when he thought of the heated discussion on Weibo. Until now, what bothered him the most was not his reputation, nor was it the impact on his popularity. His mind was filled with Yun Shishir's cold and detached gaze. After this incident, what kind of eyes would she use to look at him? He actually cared a lot about what she thought. Would she think of him as a frivolous person? Or would she think of him as the scum of the entertainment industry? He cared a lot. However, there had been no news from Yun Shishir. With Qin Zhou in charge, she would definitely choose to bide her time. However, he had seen Yun Shishir's live interview in the morning. She seemed to be very indifferent about this incident, even indifferent. She had completely distanced herself from it. He actually felt a little lonely. In the afternoon, Yun Shishir had a set of pictorials to shoot. This set of pictorials was specially invited by the magazine. Moreover, the country's top photographer would be in charge of the overall situation. Yun Shishir and the photographer talked for a while. The final result of the discussion was that they would use mermaids as the script and concept to shoot a set of underwater pictorials for the magazine. The styling team brought a few clothes. One was white and the other was red. The photographer chose the red one for her. He said that the red one would definitely look amazing in the photos. The makeup artist styled her soft black hair and put on heavy retro makeup. Her facial features were very soft and had a classic charm. Therefore, retro makeup was very suitable for her, especially her red lips. It was February and the weather was still a little cold. Although they chose a pool with a constant temperature, Yun Shishir was still shivering when she went into the water in a light dress. The photographer let her get used to the water temperature and then followed her into the water. Shooting in bed was a test of one's figure. What was amazing was that Yun Shishir's performance was excellent. She followed the photographer's instructions and made many seductive poses underwater. She was as enchanting and beautiful as the daughter of the sea god. The dark blue water and the bright red dress complemented each other. Yun Shishir's exquisite makeup, black hair, silky eyes and eyelashes were intertwined with her hair. When she looked back and smiled, her lips were red and her teeth were white. She was very seductive. Yet she had the aura of a queen. At the end of the shoot, the photographer held the camera as if he had found a treasure and browsed through the photos one by one. He was so excited that he was speechless. If Yun Shirshir, who was floating in the water, smiled knowingly at his praise. Shirshir, it's been hard on you. After the shoot, Mushi immediately took a blanket and draped it over her. She then helped her to the changing room and hurriedly changed her wet clothes. Chapter 2458. The cameraman praised you for your good performance. I took a few looks at the photos. The effect is really great. The effect is good, but I also paid quite a price. Yun Shirshir said softly, although the water is at a constant temperature, it's also very cold. I'm freezing to death. Especially after coming out of the pool when the wind blew slightly, it was bone-chilling. There was still a show to record at night. Just thinking about it gave Yun Shirshir a splitting headache and made her feel dizzy. The show was a first-tier satellite TV variety show with the ACE ratings, ACE Star Alliance. In order to cater to the audience, there were many small segments about physical fitness. Most of the guests who participated in the show were there to promote their movies or TV series. This time, the production team of Lethal Beauty wanted to promote the new drama, so the main creators, including Hua Jin, were participating in the show. Yun Shirshir was originally mentally prepared, but when she arrived at the scene, the production team said that there was a segment where they would have to wear very heavy sumo wrestling props. Different celebrities would be divided into two groups and compete against each other. When Yun Shirshir saw the props, her eyes dimmed even more. It was so heavy. It must be very heavy to wear. Yun Shirshir went on stage in a daze. During the recording of the show, when it came to the game segment, she wore the sumo wrestling outfit and appeared on stage. She looked very heavy but also very cute. The celebrities were divided into two groups. Yun Shirshir realized that most of the celebrities in her group were thinner and weaker, while the other group celebrities were more strong. She protested. There's an imbalance in strength. We're all old and weak. It's not fair. Her protest caused the audience to roar with laughter. Hua Jin was in the same group as her. When he heard that, he was dealt a huge blow and protested, "What do you mean old and weak?" "I protest." Yun Shirshir kicked him to the ground. The audience roared with laughter again. Even the MC was amused by Yun Shirshir's variety show talent. "Then do we need to change the lineup?" Hua Jin said, "No need. Our Shirshir is our team's carry. With Shirshir as our trump card, we'll definitely win." Yun Shirshir felt that she had been unjustly implicated. At the start of the game, the host announced on the spot that the celebrity who won the game would donate 5 million yuan to the charity organization in the name of the team. This was a great honor. Yun Shirshir originally didn't want to continue fighting, but when she heard that there was such a meaningful reward, her fighting spirit was ignited. In the end, what made everyone not know whether to laugh or cry was that everyone thought that Hua Jin's "Shirshir is our trump card" was just a joke. Who would have thought that Shirshir's fighting strength was on the verge of exploding? She rampaged all the way, and even a male guest with a more muscular body was pushed out of the circle by her. Everyone was dumbfounded. At this time, only Hua Jin and Yun Shirshir were left in the arena. Yun Shirshir looked proud and arrogant as she asked, "Who else wants to fight?" The host immediately gave her the title of Desperate 13th Lady. Hua Jin stood up and revealed, "Don't underestimate Shirshir. She ate 2 of my meals on set." Ah! The guests were convulsing with laughter. Xiao Yichen and Yu were overjoyed as they watched the live broadcast. "Ah! Mommy is so funny." Xiao Yichen said, "Do you have to fight so hard? You don't even have a ladle-like image anymore." "Mommy isn't ladle-like in the first place, okay? If Mommy hears you, she'll beat you up." Chapter 2459. When Yun Shirshir returned home after filming, Yu and Xiao Yichen immediately welcomed her. "Madam 13 is home." When Yun Shirshir heard this nickname, her eyes twitched and her face darkened. She knew that the 2 little guys must have watched the live broadcast of her show. She said angrily, "Don't give Mommy a nickname." Yu said pitifully, "Mommy, I'm innocent. The host gave you this nickname, not Yu." Seeing how pitiful he looked, Yun Shirshir could not help but pinch his cheeks and ask, "Is Daddy home?" "Yeah, in the study." When Yun Shirshir walked into the study, she saw Mu Yaja sitting in front of the computer and staring at the screen intently. She walked over curiously and saw that he was watching the replay of her show with great interest. It happened to play the scene where she was playing a game. She was wearing a cumbersome sumo suit and charging into the enemy camp like a bull. She immediately blushed and blocked the screen. She said gloomily, "Stop watching. This is for the show's effect. I'm not that barbaric. Muyaja smiled and grabbed her wrist, pulling her into his arms. Why are you back so late? The show should have finished filming a long time ago. Yeah, I had supper with the crew after filming. What did you eat? Seafood porridge. Yun Shirshir suddenly thought of something and asked, Have you seen Weibo? Weibo. Muyaja was stunned. He quickly realized what she was talking about and replied, Yeah, I saw it. I saw it. It was very exciting. Yun Shirshir said pitifully, Don't get the wrong idea. The woman in the photos in the Weibo post this morning is not me. The first thing she did when she got home was to explain things to him. She had left in a hurry in the morning. She explained it would seem too deliberate. Although she felt that this incident had nothing to do with her, she also knew that Muyaja could tell at a glance that the woman in the photos was not her. But after all, it involved her and Gu Xingze. When Li Xianer hyped up the news, it would inevitably lead to other media outlets hyping up the scandal between her and Gu Xingze. She was worried that he would overthink when he saw those messy reports and hype. Moreover, she did not want to implicate Gu Xingze again. This man's methods had always been ruthless. If she angered him, she might be banned again. Muyaja grabbed her chin and kissed her fair cheek. He hummed again, but this time, his tone was full of tenderness. I know, you don't have to explain yourself. I'm afraid you'll think too much. She didn't care much about this incident, but she cared more about his feelings. Muyaja said, I'm not as stupid as you think. Alright. It's good that you're not thinking too much. Yun Shirshir heaved a sigh of relief and slumped in his arms. I'm so tired today. Dearest hubby, can you massage my shoulders? Your shoulders are sore? Muyaja was nervous for a moment. Seeing her tired face, he couldn't help but feel sorry for her. He immediately lifted his hand and massaged her shoulders obediently. He was quite strong. Yun Shirshir mumbled, Be gentler. Yeah. He was also afraid that he would hurt her petite body, so he used less strength. Here, okay. And here, and a little to the left. Yeah. Use a little more strength. Aya, it's so sore. Chapter 2460. Yun Shirshir was able to order a certain man around with ease. His grip was just right and she couldn't help but let out a few soft moans of pleasure. He saw that her intoxicated look was just too moving, too cute, and he couldn't help but lightly peck her cheek. This intimate action was bumped into by the two little lads who had snuck into the study. Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen were the best at catching adulterers. Muyaja's face froze. Yu Yu's eyes widened in surprise. Then she ran over enviously and complained, Daddy, you're biased. My back was itchy just now but you didn't even want to scratch it. Xiao Yichen said enviously, Mommy seems to be very comfortable. Daddy, you should massage my shoulders too. Yun Shirshir's eyes twitched and she said, Mommy is very tired after working for the whole day, okay? Yu Yu placed her hands on her hips and said self-righteously, Yu has been doing housework for the whole day so she's very tired too, okay? When Xiao Yichen heard this, he also placed his hands on his hips and said unreasonably, Xiao Yichen has been playing for the whole day so his shoulders are sore too. Yu Yu and Yun Shirshir were silent. They glared at him in disdain and said, You think you're in the right after playing for the whole day? Yu Yu immediately took action. She cupped her fists and cracked her knuckles. Muichen, you still have the cheek to say that? You only know how to play games when I asked you to mop the floor. You want a massage, right? I'll let you have a taste of my fist. As she said this, she grabbed Xiao Yichen's collar. Xiao Yichen was so shocked that he cried out, Yu Yu, you're a bully? Then he ran out of the study. Yu Yu chased after him. Muichen, you big idiot. Don't run. Yun Shirshir and Muyaja stared dumbfoundedly at the two boys making a ruckus. They stared blankly for a moment before looking at each other and laughing. They really are two living treasures. Yun Shirshir said with emotion. With these two clowns at home, there was no need to worry about loneliness. Sometimes, when she came back from work feeling exhausted, these two little lads always had the ability to heal her heart. With just a few words, even if it was just a look, they would always be able to sweep away the haze in her heart. Do you feel better? He asked softly. The gentleness in his eyes warmed her heart. Yun Shirshir nodded and said, Much better. My shoulders aren't so sore anymore. Thank you, husband. Muyaja gently rested his chin on the side of her shoulder and quietly hugged her. In this quiet moment, he only wanted to quietly hug her and gently kiss her. His attachment to her always showed itself unconsciously. Sometimes even he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He even found it unbelievable. He originally thought that after getting married, their feelings would be like those of married couples, going from intense to dull. However, this feeling didn't fade at all. Instead, it became even more intense and difficult to suppress. What Yun Shirshir didn't know was that even though he looked so calm when he married her, his heart was like a blooming firework. His feelings for her filled his chest and he was deeply in love with her. At that time, there were 4 words that kept repeating in his mind: he was married. He was married. Yes, he had a home. When he returned home, he had a wife and a pair of adorable sons. This was a life that he could only look forward to. This joy still hadn't faded even now. Chapter 2461. At moments and corners where she couldn't see, he would always secretly take out the marriage certificate as if he was possessed and look at it again and again. He would stare at the photo of the 2 people leaning against each other in a daze. Unknowingly, a smile would always appear in his eyes. If Yun Shirshir knew that he always carried the marriage certificate with him, she would definitely have a whole new level of respect for this man. Even Lu Jinyu had seen it a few times. In the office, when he was free from work, he would take out the small red book from his pocket and look at it. Lu Jinyu secretly said to Jiang Shen, "Boss seems to be possessed by something." When Jiang Shen found out, he secretly gave Mu Yaja the title of a wife slave behind his back. Wife slave. Lu Jinyu shook his head and said, "You didn't see boss smiling foolishly at the marriage certificate. It scared me." Jiang Shen was in a mess. Mu Yaja didn't seem to realize that ever since they got married, he seemed to be becoming more and more of a wife slave. Yun Shirshir was originally worried that after they got married, this man would think that since they were already married, he wouldn't cherish her anymore. But what about the opposite? He cherished her more and more. Because he was always thinking about her. She was his wife, his legitimate wife. If he didn't pamper her, who else would pamper her? It was precisely because of this awareness that Mu Yaja displayed the demeanor of a wife slave, that Lu Jinyu and Jiang Shen were taken aback. He also understood that the marriage certificate wasn't just a piece of paper. They were clearly married, but they were still like young men and women in their honeymoon period. Even though they had only parted in the morning and hadn't seen each other for a day, they already missed each other very much. During the afternoon meeting, even though he was sitting in the conference room, he seemed distracted. Hence, he specially returned home early to wait for her return. Where was the husband-gazing stone? However, the husband of the husband-gazing stone was referring to his wife. Now that he was holding her in his arms, when her petite body filled his chest, his heart suddenly calmed down. It was as if this was the only way he could feel the real her and her warmth. Yun Shirshir also thought to herself that after they got married, a certain man seemed to be more clingy to her. Was this a good thing? At this moment, Mu Yaja also had the same thought in his heart. When will my wife give birth to a little princess for me? Hubby? You said, Yun Shirshir suddenly said awkwardly, is the plastic surgery technology really so advanced now? Mu Yaja was still immersed in his fantasies about his little princess, so he only vaguely heard the words plastic surgery. He asked curiously, plastic surgery? Yes. It was the Weibo post from this morning. The woman in the photo was called Li Xiener. Qinzhou searched for her photo and she really looked like me. Qinzhou said that she must have gotten plastic surgery based on me. But can plastic surgery really make you look like me? If the original mold is similar, it's not impossible to make it exactly the same. Upon hearing this, Yun Shirshir's expression became even uglier. Her face had been used as a template, and then a woman who looked so much like her had appeared out of nowhere. No matter how she thought about it, she felt uncomfortable and even awkward. The Weibo post from this morning? Chapter 2462. You also think that the woman looks like me, right? Mu Yaja shook his head and said confidently, how can I mistake my old skin for someone else? I don't think they look alike at all. How is that possible? Yun Shirshir obviously did not believe him. Qinzhou, Yu and Xiao Yichen thought it was me at first glance. I'm the one who shares a bed with you every day. How can I mistake my wife for someone else? Mu Yaja said, besides, although they look alike, their temperament is obviously different. Temperament? Yes. She doesn't have your temperament. Therefore, even if she has the same looks, she doesn't look outstanding. It was 30% looks and 70% temperament. A person's temperament was more important than their looks. Yun Shirshir's temperament was very good. Just like her name, Yun Shirshir was poetic, elegant, and elegant. Yun Shirshir's heart instantly brightened up when she heard this. She turned around and pinched his cheeks with a smile. You really know how to talk. Regardless of whether he was coaxing her or telling the truth, she was almost dizzy from his words. However, this beautiful mood didn't last for too long. The next day, Li Xiener's management company went all out to create hype. In Qinzhou's words, it was simply crazy. Good move. What a good move. Qin Zhou slammed a stack of files on the table and said angrily, "This Li Xianer is really shameless." What's wrong? Yun Shirshir was putting on her makeup when she saw Qin Zhou's angry eyes. She was a little confused. What's wrong with Li Xianer? The management company she signed with signed a publicity team the night before yesterday. This publicity team is really good at creating hype. They actually posted Li Xianer's photos online. Isn't this what you want? Yun Shirshir asked curiously. Haven't you been looking for photos of her before her plastic surgery? I did find a photo of her before her plastic surgery, but Ease released a press release before Huan Yu did. The difference is huge. If I release a statement, I will guide the public opinion in a direction that is beneficial to you. However, the hype team had purposely chosen a few selfies that looked better before her plastic surgery. Then, as soon as they released the article, Li Xianer came out to deny that she had undergone plastic surgery. She even said that she wanted to go to the hospital for a DNA test. Then she said that she wanted to sue the Weibo media who had slandered her. Their way of praising and trampling on her was really top-notch. Just the topic of plastic surgery alone is enough for Li Xianer to hype up for a while. Isn't she afraid of getting a bad reputation by doing this? So what if he has a bad reputation? Who would care about that little bit of reputation? As long as one was famous, regardless of whether the reputation was good or bad, the more outlandish and shameless one was, the more attention the public would pay. The more attention there was, the more exposure there would be. Li Xianer just exposed this hype yesterday, but this morning, there were many satellite channels looking for her to do a show. This is the effect of hype. In the entertainment industry, there were many female celebrities who did not hesitate to make a fool of themselves by deliberately making disgusting comments to gain exposure and fame. There were also many female celebrities who were more direct and became famous overnight. The entertainment industry was in a mess because of these immoral celebrities. After all, fame and wealth were often unscrupulous. Chapter 2463. Qin Zhou said angrily, "Shirshir, you've been bitten by that mad dog Li Xian, and she won't let you go. Didn't you see her Weibo update this morning? Her selfie is exactly the same as the selfie you posted 2 nights ago. She's obviously imitating you." Yun Shirshir immediately opened it to take a look. Sure enough, she had posted a selfie on Weibo 2 nights ago. She was wearing a hat and a creamy yellow outfit, with one hand supporting her chin and a reserved smile on her lips. Li Xianer, on the other hand, copied her selfie this morning and posted a selfie. She was wearing the same outfit and even the background was extremely similar. She did not know how she did it. Yun Shirshir was also a little angry. She cursed angrily at the side. This Li Xianer is really a bitch. I'm so annoyed just looking at her. She's probably sure that we can't do anything to her. Does this Li Xianer have a big sugar daddy backing her? Qin Zhou said unhappily, even if she didn't before, now that this matter has happened and she's famous, there will be a long line of sugar daddies who want her as their mistress. Early in the morning, Yun Shirshir's character was ruined by this woman's bad publicity. 2 days later, Yun Shirshir's underwater photos were published on the magazine's official Weibo account, and the behind-the-scenes footage was also made into a short video. Yun Shirshir immediately saw the post-production blockbuster. The images were exquisite, and the lighting was very good. In the dark blue water, a bright red dress was seductive in the water. There was one photo that she especially liked. She was submerged in the water, and the sunlight shone through the water, reflecting the splendor of the waves. She was wearing a red dress and was facing the water. Her black hair was curled up, and the hem of her dress was charming. On her fair face, her eyebrows were picturesque, her eyes were seductive, her lips were red, and her teeth were white. When she looked back, she was seductive. There was also a shot of the back view. Her figure was enchanting, like a mermaid diving into the depths of the water. She wore a pure white dress and held a bunch of alluring roses in her hands. She lowered her eyes and gently sniffed the roses. She was beautiful and enchanting. After the light and shadow treatment, her white dress was like snow, and her skin was like porcelain. The roses set off her black hair and red lips, and the visual effect was extremely stunning. Very few female celebrities had attempted to do underwater photo shoots. Yun Shirshir's underwater photo shoots had stunned countless people. As soon as the photo was released, it attracted the attention of many fans. "Oh my god. I didn't know you could take photos like this. Shirshir looks really enchanting like this. Just like mermaids. She's so charming. I like the one in the red dress the most. She has black hair and a red dress. She looks so flirtatious underwater. Too beautiful." A few days after the photo shoots were published, Li Xianer's Weibo also published a set of photo shoots. However, what surprised people was that she actually imitated Yun Shishir's underwater photo shoots and took a set of photo shoots. What was even more infuriating was that whether it was the composition, the shooting posture, the clothes, the style, or the makeup, they were all exactly the same. The traces of imitation couldn't be more obvious. When put together, it was impossible to tell which set was taken by Yun Shishir and which set was taken by Li Xianer. Qin Zhou had been paying attention to Li Xianer's Weibo. When he clicked on this set of photo shoots, he was about to explode with anger. This Li Xianer was clearly determined to imitate Yun Shishir to the end. Chapter 2464. However, Li Xianer's photo shoot was not as exquisite as Yun Shishir's. It was a little rough and the lighting effects were not satisfactory. After all, it was not taken by a famous photographer, so the details were not handled well. However, it was more than enough to fool a group of fans. When Yun Shishir's fans saw this, they were filled with righteous indignation and scolded her for being shameless. However, Li Xianer seemed to enjoy this kind of attention. That morning, when she opened Weibo and saw that the photos that had been secretly taken after she left the hotel that night had been published on the website, she was shocked. Early in the morning, she was summoned to the company. She was trembling with fear. After this incident, she was worried that the company would ask about it. However, to her surprise, the person who summoned her was the company's senior management. The senior management went straight to the point and said that the photos had been secretly taken by the paparazzi that the company had hired. He also told her that the company had the intention to package her, hype her up, and turn her into a professional actress. Li Xianer was a little stunned by the sudden surprise. Like many young girls who started out as models, she had graduated from an unknown art school. Of course, like those students who started out in the modeling industry, she had worked in public relations during her university years. Of course, she only worked on the stage and never left it. At that time, she was still in school and the discipline was quite strict. She used this job to save some money. After graduating from the art school, she came to the bustling metropolis, Beijing, alone. She planned to work hard towards her dream of acting. Her features were not outstanding. At that time, Gu Xingze and Yun Shishir's movie had not yet been released, but the photos had already been released. She was a diehard fan of Gu Xingze. Therefore, she copied Yun Shishir's looks and traveled to Korea. There, she underwent a total of 3 operations to look like her. The plastic surgery was very successful. With her outstanding appearance, she quickly signed a contract with a modeling company. Of course, this modeling company was not considered popular and had nothing to do with the catwalk. When she was not famous, she could only shoot some simple print ads and get some meager pay. The turning point of her fate was probably when she met Gu Xingze at that private gathering. At that time, Gu Xingze had just been banned from the entertainment industry. All his acting contracts had been cancelled, and his career had hit rock bottom. When they met, he seemed to be in a bad mood. He had drunk some wine and was in a daze. She deliberately approached him and tried to please him. Perhaps it was because of her appearance, but he didn't seem to reject her approach. Everything that happened next seemed to be logical. He was a normal man and naturally had the most primitive desires of a man. However, there was always a woman in his heart. Because of this woman, he instinctively resisted other women. However, Li Xianer, who looked like her, appeared at the right time and broke the spell. Perhaps he wanted to find a substitute to comfort himself, but he chose her. However, this relationship had nothing to do with romance or any feelings. At the beginning of this relationship, he coldly and cruelly made it very clear that between them, it was just a transaction. The money and the goods were settled. He needed her, and as the price, he would give her a large sum of money. Chapter 2465. However, he rarely looked for her and rarely touched her. Many times he stopped abruptly at the crucial moment. His desires in certain areas were very weak. Or perhaps he would only think of looking for her when he really needed her and couldn't control himself. It was just that each of them wanted what they wanted, that was all. As for women other than Yun Shishir, he was indifferent. He didn't have much hope for women. Perhaps in the future he would follow his family's wishes and marry a wife. Or perhaps he would stay single for the rest of his life. He would only ask for warmth when he needed it. In this aspect he couldn't be more negative. During that time he was muddle-headed and lost. As a result, he didn't even notice the hidden dangers around him. The company's higher-ups quickly noticed the relationship between Li Xianer and Gu Xingze and were overjoyed. Especially Li Xianer's manager. She wasn't really a manager, but she could be considered the person in charge. After a discussion with the company's higher-ups, they came up with a series of hype plans without the knowledge of the two people. What a joke. No one dared to imagine that Li Xianer, who looked like an unknown young model, would have a relationship with the superstar, Gu Xingze. No matter what the relationship was, as long as she had a little bit of contact with Gu Xingze, she would have extraordinary hype capital. This kind of hype capital meant unimaginable exposure and popularity. Ever since Ease was established, they had rarely been able to cultivate any truly famous celebrities. After all, it was a third-rate agency. Even if they had Mekong as their backing, Mekong was still a modeling agency that mainly dealt in peaches. Their resources would only be given to the artists under them. Therefore, Ease had never produced any A-list celebrities. Li Xian'er would probably be the one to break the record. Having a famous artist under them might be a breakthrough. All of this was thanks to Gu Xingze. The company had a showdown with Li Xian'er and gave her a contract. As long as she signed it, it meant that she had signed a life and death contract with the company. She had to obey the company's arrangements. The higher-ups had clearly told her that they would be arranging a series of publicity campaigns for her. For this reason, the company had spent a huge sum of money to hire a team that specialized in publicity campaigns. They would use her and Gu Xingze to create a series of publicity campaigns. The publicity campaigns required her cooperation. However, in order to gain popularity and exposure, she would be subjected to a lot of curses and insults from her fans. This was something that she had to endure in order to become famous. If she could endure it, the company would put all their eggs in one basket and turn her into a professional celebrity. In the future, she might be able to act in movies, commercials, television shows, and cooperate with many A-list celebrities. If she worked hard enough and endured enough hardship, she could also be on equal footing with real A-list celebrities in the future, such as Yun Shishir and Yang Mi. When Li Xian'er heard this, she was extremely moved. Her heart was beating very fast, like thunder, and boiling hot. In the entertainment industry there were different grades and ranks. At the top of the pyramid were A-list international celebrities such as Han Yuyan and Gu Xingze. A-list and B-list celebrities who were not internationally famous, such as Li Jiuxian, Yang Mi, Yun Shishir, and C-list celebrities like Lin Ji. Chapter 2466. She didn't have any works or anything. She could only hope to gain the favor of a rich man. To put it bluntly, she was just a high-class prostitute. If she was lucky, she could marry into a rich family and become a rich man's wife with her looks and seduction skills that she had learned in this industry. Such a glamorous dream was something that few could achieve. She had always envied Yun Shishir for being able to become a professional actress and act with Gu Xingze. The company's offer was extremely tempting because the company was also ambitious. They hoped to use her to open up the entertainment industry. If she became famous, they would be able to get some resources through her. Ease lacked these resources too much. Hence they were very ambitious. However, Li Xian'er still had some concerns in her heart. She was still a little embarrassed. She said worriedly, "It's not very good to do this, is it? Isn't this equivalent to using Xingze?" Yes. A few of the executives laughed. "Silly girl, in this industry it's all about using each other. You step on me, I step on you. Whoever is more ruthless will get the upper hand. Yes. Who isn't using each other? Moreover, aren't you obviously setting up a monument to your chastity? Didn't you get plastic surgery based on Yun Shishir's face? Aren't you just delusional about using Yun Shishir's fame to help you overcome obstacles in this industry?" Their sharp words were aggressive. Li Xian'er couldn't avoid it. She lowered her head in shame. "Moreover, I think that Gu Xingze likes you quite a lot. He treats you so well. This little bit of resources shouldn't be a problem for him. After all, haven't you slept with him?" Li Xian'er's face turned even redder. "Slept with him? It was only 3 times. One of those times was when Gu Xingze was drunk. She was obsessed with seducing him and getting close to him. After that, it seemed like there was no more. His need for her was only to call her over and quietly stay by his side. She deliberately seduced him and even deliberately wore very sexy lingerie. However, he seemed to be indifferent. Sometimes, if she went overboard, he would treat her coldly and not look for her for a long time. She stammered, "He and I actually don't have such a deep relationship. It's not as ambiguous as you say. Silly girl, in this industry, Gu Xingze is famous for his abstinence. Ever since his debut, he's never had a woman by his side. Even if there's a scandal, it's always the woman who's thrown herself at him to create hype. He doesn't care about creating hype and rarely finds a partner in bed. You're probably the first one, right?" What did this mean? This meant that Gu Xingze still had some feelings for her. In other words, you must be special in his heart. Was special. Otherwise, would he have hugged you so brazenly to the hotel? There are so many paparazzi waiting for him. He did this because he didn't have his guard up against you. So, don't you think you're special? When Li Xian'er heard this, her heart beat like thunder. She was even a little bit overjoyed. I'm special. She was special. Was that really the case? All this while, she had always thought that this was just a transaction. Chapter 2467. Besides, do you know how Yun Shishir debuted? When she first debuted, she wasn't very famous. Gu Xingze gave her his top manager and supported her. He even used his fame and resources to help her get to the top. This shows that he is very generous to the woman he loves. Although you aren't Yun Shishir, you had a relationship with him before. It's not a big deal for him to give you some resources. Li Xiang signed the contract in a daze, feeling a little uneasy. She was like an evil demon who was at the mercy of the gods and demons. That night, Gu Xingze called and asked directly, Li Xiang, are you crazy? Li Xiang had expected the superstar to call her at this juncture of the hype, but she did not expect him to speak in a foul and furious tone. She could not help but feel uneasy when he called her in a fit of rage. After receiving the long-awaited call, her heart started to beat faster in the face of his questioning tone. She didn't know what to do. While she didn't know what to do, Gu Xingze gave her a stern warning, Are you trying to use me to get to the top? Who gave you the right to do that? Gu Xingze was obviously frustrated. He scolded her sternly, Before this, I remember making it clear to you that we have nothing to do with money. Other than that, you're not allowed to have any other ideas. Nothing to do with money? Am I a product? Do you think I'm a product? Li Xian choked with sobs. Especially when she heard the words, nothing to do with money. What? Aren't you? Gu Xingze retorted, I thought you knew your place very well. Xingze. Li Xian said bitterly, I didn't want to create hype today. After I left the hotel, I went straight home. I didn't hire the paparazzi. It really isn't. What difference does it make whether it's you or not? Right now, you're the one who's causing me a lot of trouble. Gu Xingze was beginning to realize just how dangerous this woman was. He had nothing to say about using him. It was not worthwhile for him to lower himself to the same level as this small fry. But this Li Xian's way of creating hype was obviously aimed at Yun Shishir and him. His original intention was to not disturb Yun Shishir's life. What she did was too much. He could condone his own depravity, but he couldn't condone other women using his name to hurt that woman. Li Xian was on the verge of tears. No matter how stupid she was, she could tell what Gu Xingze was trying to protect with this phone call. He didn't care if his popularity would be affected by this hype, nor did he care how others would view his private life. What he cared about was that her way of creating hype had disturbed Yun Shishir. She didn't understand. In terms of looks, she had done plastic surgery to look like Yun Shishir. When she saw the interview, it seemed like Yun Shishir didn't care about Gu Xingze at all. But she was willing to give up anything for him. Even if it was just a word from him, she was willing to give up on creating hype. But a phone call shattered her infatuation. Chapter 2468. Before this phone call, she had happily thought that she had some special feelings for this man. She had high hopes, but all she got was his anger and questioning. Li Xian was completely dumbfounded. The most heartbreaking thing wasn't his questioning, but his protection of Yun Shishir. It was obvious that he valued his own reputation. That Yun Shishir, what right did she have? Why was he so obsessed with her when he knew that he couldn't have her? Li Xian couldn't figure it out. What was the scariest thing for a woman? It wasn't losing to a woman, but losing to a woman who couldn't be bothered to fight with her. This Yun Shishir didn't even care about Gu Xingze. Why was Gu Xingze so devoted to her in the end? Xingze. Actually, I'm not greedy. I didn't mean to use you to create hype. It's just that the company arranged a series of plans for me so I could only follow them. I signed the contract with them in a daze. The company created hype so I had to cooperate. Li Xian suddenly thought of something. As if possessed, she stared straight at the wall and gripped her phone tightly. Besides, even if it's just creating hype, I don't think I went overboard, did I? Xingze, didn't you help Yun Shishir get to her current position? When she first debuted, she wasn't popular and was still a newcomer. Huan Yu packaged her to create a scandal with you and helped her get to her current position. Then it shouldn't matter if you give me some resources, right? I'm not greedy. As long as you give me a little of Yun Shishir's resources, just a small portion, it'll be enough. I'm not greedy. I just want to be a professional actress. Gu Xingze was silent for a long time. When he opened his mouth again, his voice was even colder. Li Xian, I advise you not to try to guess my intentions or negotiate with me. Remember this. You should know the limits of our relationship. I'm never stingy with what I owe you. However, don't covet what doesn't belong to you in the first place. Yun Shishir, this woman is not someone you can scheme against, let alone offend. The reason why she was able to become famous was definitely not because she had good resources. She had the ability to do so. I've already made my stance very clear. If you stop now, I'll let bygones be bygones. But if you still refuse to realize your error. Gu Xingzi suddenly changed the topic and said coldly, even if you are praised to the top, I will still beat you down to the bottom. You and I are already done. Let's part on good terms. Don't make things too ugly. I'm officially informing you now that from now on, we have nothing to do with each other. Also, if you still don't respect yourself, I don't mind using my methods. With that, Gu Xingzi hung up the phone. Li Xianer held the phone and stared blankly at the bare wall. She loosened her grip and the phone fell to the ground with a loud thud. After hearing Gu Xingzi's words, she almost broke down. His expectations and the little bit of joy he had in his heart had all been swept away. It turned out that she wasn't special in his heart. She thought that she was special, but she was just a substitute in his eyes. Chapter 2469. Li Xianer was so angry that she wanted to go crazy. She stood in the room and wanted to throw everything she could see on the ground as if that was the only way to appease her anger. Stop. How could that be? If he had such an attitude, then there was no harm in her smashing a pot that had nothing to lose. Anyway, she had already signed the contract. If she were to break the contract, the penalty for breaching the contract would be immeasurable. Since he had already said those harsh words, her heart was completely dead. Therefore she was not afraid at all. If he wanted to attack her, then she might as well let him. Even if she knew that the consequences of being stubborn would be tragic. She no longer cared about anything. Who asked her to be filled with resentment and anger at this moment? Yun Shishir felt like she was being pestered by a disgusting woman. Ever since that day Ease had boldly and decisively launched their hype campaign, there seemed to be no signs of stopping. In fact, the situation was getting more and more intense and there seemed to be a lot of hype going on. Li Xianer's Weibo updates gradually became more frequent. No matter what she posted, the following selfies always showed signs of imitating Yun Shishir. She deliberately trimmed her hairstyle and used the same color as Yun Shishir's lipstick in the latest photo shoot. She also took a selfie with the same brand of mascara in the print beauty advertisement that Yun Shishir endorsed. The worst was when Yun Shishir and Gu Xingzi's new drama started filming. The media followed and reported on it, and there were constant reports from the set. Yun Shishir's exclusive car in the production team was a Volkswagen Golf GTI. Not long after, Li Xianer posted a selfie of herself leaning against the Volkswagen Golf GTI. It was obvious that she was trying to ride on Yun Shishir's popularity. Yun Shishir thought that Li Xianer's hype campaign would not last long. However, she did not expect Li Xianer to be so persistent in this matter. It seemed like she was going to continue imitating her until the end. Rather than calling it an imitation, it was more like role-playing, right? Yun Shishir sat in the makeup room and quietly scrolled through Li Xianer's Weibo. Suddenly she lamented, "I've never seen such a shameless woman." Hua Jin raised his eyebrows and said, "I've seen a lot of them." In this circle, the more women like Li Xianer were able to grasp an opportunity, the more they would be undaunted by setbacks. A woman like this was very ambitious. No matter how badly she was slandered, no matter how much she was bombarded, it was useless. Even if she was shameless, she had to become famous. To an artist, exposure was as important as life. After all, her youth is limited. Yun Shishir put down her phone and quietly washed her nail polish with nail polish remover. Her gaze was a little absent-minded. Qinzhou was also frowning. He did not have any constructive measures. Jilin said that Li Xianer and Ease were like two lazy dogs. They were shameless and unafraid of boiling water. Even if they were competing in terms of publicity, Ease was simply crazy when it came to hyping things up. Even Qinzhou had to admit defeat. It was obvious that they wanted to use the company's resources to promote Li Xianer to the top. If they did not achieve their goal, they would not give up. Chapter 2470. The crew had already started filming. The original novel was called Extreme Youth, and the name of the TV series was also tentatively set. After half a month of training, Yun Shishir immediately started filming. At the same time, the post-production of Lethal Beauty was initially completed. It was officially broadcast on a first-tier satellite TV channel. The TV rights of Lethal Beauty were exclusively bought by Beijing Central Satellite TV. Yun Shishir's heart was beating fast. She played a vicious female supporting role in Lethal Beauty. In the series, in order to get the male lead played by Hua Jin, she was unscrupulous, ruthless, and scheming against the female lead. A standard femme fatale with a ruthless heart. Therefore, when Lethal Beauty was officially broadcast, she was also frightened. After the first 3 episodes, she dared not open her Weibo to look at the fans' comments, let alone the fans' comments on the forum. They would definitely be vicious comments. In the first 3 episodes, she played a female supporting role in the series, Qin Yuyan, which attracted a lot of hatred. Before Qin Chengle's rebirth, Qin Yuyan seduced the male lead and married into the royal family. She fed Qin Chengel sterilization drugs, and she was pregnant with the royal heir and gave birth to a prince for the male lead. Immediately after, she was conferred the title of empress because of her son. Using the royal heir and the male lead's favor, she was ruthless and ruthless. She schemed everywhere and forced Qin Chengel into the cold palace. She gouged out her eyes and broke her bones. Finally, she tampered with the imperial edict and gave her a 3-foot white silk, forcing Qin Chengel to commit suicide. Yun Shishir initially chose to play this role because compared to Qin Chengel, Qin Yuyan's character image was more vivid. Qin Chengel's character design was too monotonous. The core of the script was the word revenge. Her rebirth was dedicated to revenge. But Qin Yuyan was different. She was also a naive girl who loved someone wholeheartedly. Later, her family fell and was bullied. She used all means and schemes to seize power. Step by step, she became the empress. If Qin Chengel hadn't been reborn and had the memory of her previous life, even Ten Qin Changles might not be Qin Yuyan's opponent. Yun Shishir felt that this role was too cool. How could he think of so many tricks? Especially the part about tampering with the imperial edict, it was too amazing. Qin Yuyan ordered her confidant to tamper with the imperial edict and bestow Qin Chengel with a 3-foot white silk. This scene was the climax of the whole drama. However, now that the TV series had been broadcasted, she was a little scared. Although Qin Yuyan's character design was perfect, she was too evil and vicious. Such a character design was challenging, but in front of the audience, it was not likable at all. Perhaps the popularity she had accumulated on The Green Apple would be lost in Lethal Beauty. Perhaps, overnight, she would become the public enemy of the whole nation. She summoned up her courage and secretly opened Weibo. Sure enough, the keywords hashtag Qin Yuyan and hashtag appeared on the hot search list. Chapter 2471. Lin Ji and Yun Shishir's acting skills are excellent, but with all due respect, I haven't seen such a vicious female supporting character in a long time. Although I'm not a diehard fan of Yun Shishir, and I know it's the setting of the script, but now I feel sick when I see Yun Shishir's face. For example, damn it. Qin Yuyan, get out of here. I think this vicious woman deserves to die 10,000 times. I want to chop Qin Yuyan with a knife. A woman who can take the role of Qin Yuyan must be very scheming, right? Yun Shishir doesn't look like a good person, she's obviously a bitch. How can Qin Yuyan be so vicious? She's too shrewd, isn't she? When she gave the white silk, Qin Yuyan's expression was so scary. I shuddered and was scared by her eyes. Yun Shishir cried on the dressing table. Don't you have any pertinent comments? For example, good acting, great acting skills, or something like that. It was over. Was the popularity and reputation that she had worked so hard to accumulate going to be ruined because of the role of Qin Yuyan? Although it was a thankless role, she had already known that the audience would hate her so much that they wanted her to die as soon as possible. Some of the audience even attacked her personally, cursing her to be hit by a car when she went out. It was so heart-wrenching. As she expected, after the broadcast, her Weibo was soon attacked. But on the other hand, she was a little complacent. She thought that the reason why the audience hated this character so much must be her superb acting skills. She had portrayed Qin Yuyan's viciousness so well. In order to study this character, she had spent a lot of effort. From the eyes, to the expression, to the behavior, she had figured it out several times. Qin Yuyan's character had the biggest change in the script. From the initial naivety of a young girl to the later insidious ruthlessness, she played the male and female protagonists with ease. Qin Zhou had told her before that no matter what the audience said about Qin Yuyan, she must post a Weibo status to attract attention after the TV series was broadcast. Yun Shishir posted a Weibo status. She sat in the driver's seat of a modified Golf GTI, took a picture of her hands on the steering wheel and then posted, "Today it's not Qin Yuyan but the racer Han Zhen." Then he would submit a rather cool selfie and publish it. After posting the Weibo, she threw the phone aside, started the car, and went for a ride on the mountain road near the filming site. Today she was going to shoot a set of racing scenes. Some of the stunts were naturally done by professional racers. She only needed to reshoot some scenes. In fact, after such a long period of training, he had already learned some basic techniques, such as the basic tail swing and simple drifts. However, since they were filming on the mountain path today in order to ensure safety, they still had to hire professionals to film those cool scenes. But what made people speechless? Gu Xingze did not do anything at all. Body, acting, driver. The whole process of showing off his superb driving skills was done by him alone. Mu Shi seemed to have mentioned before that Gu Xingze also raced in private. He was the artist who owned the most racing cars. Moreover, in this extreme youth movie, the male lead's racing cars were all privately owned by him. Chapter 2472. Mu Shi said that Gu Xingze had participated in many international competitions and even won first place in the Ferrari competition 3 years ago. When he was 20 years old, he competed with Schumacher. He was a terrifying man. It was as if this drama was tailor-made for him. After a day of filming, when she returned home, Yu saw her and complained, "Empress Yu, why are you home so early today?" Empress Yu was Qin Yuyan's title in the drama. Yun Shishir's lips twitched when Xiao Yiqin ran up to her. After sizing her up for a while, he said with lingering fear, "Mommy, if Xiao Yiqin is disobedient in the future, will you give Xiao Yiqin 3 feet of white silk?" Yun Shishir clutched her chest, feeling hurt internally. "Did you guys watch the premiere?" Yu and Xiao Yiqin nodded silently. "I'm so sad. I didn't expect Mommy to be so vicious. I watched the premiere yesterday and was so angry at Mommy." Xiao Yiqin complained tearfully, "Sister Changle is so pitiful. She loved Xinyuan Che so much, but what happened in the end? Even if she dies, she will die in the cold palace. Mommy is so mean. She tampered with the imperial edict and gave her 3 feet of white silk. She's so mean." Yu glanced at him and saw that Xiao Yiqin seemed to be too engrossed in the drama as he said sadly, "Originally, Xinyuan Che's imperial edict was to let Qin Changle out of the cold palace, but Qin Yuyan interfered and caused them to be separated forever. Poisonous." Yun Shishir retorted, "Xiao Yiqin, are you poisonous? Look carefully, the person standing in front of you is your most adorable and beautiful mother. Why did you put yourself in the role of Qin Yuyan?" "Sai, it's because this drama made me feel so depressed." Yun Shishir thought in annoyance, this rascal is actually speaking up for Qin Changle. Qin Changle was played by Lin Ji. Although Qin Changle was the female lead, Yun Shishir didn't like her character because of Lin Ji. After all, first impressions were the strongest. When she thought about how Xiao Yiqin actually liked Qin Changle's character, Yun Shishir was so angry that she suffered internal injuries. Yun Shishir placed her bag on the sofa and walked into the dining room to pour herself some water. Xiao Yiqin immediately followed behind her. He knew that he had offended her with his words, so he smiled in a flattering manner. "Mommy, are you thirsty? Aha! Come, sit down and don't move." Xiao Yiqin led her to the dining table and sat down. Then he smiled and said, "Mommy, I'll get you some water." Then he eagerly went to get the purified water to drink. Yun Shishir's anger dissipated a little. "That's more like it." Xiao Yiqin eagerly brought the purified water over and even told her to drink slowly. Yun Shishir picked up the glass and took a sip with satisfaction. Suddenly she saw Xiao Yiqin blinking his beautiful big eyes. He looked at her curiously and passionately. Smiling, he asked, "Mommy, when will your character, Qin Yuyan, end?" Cough cough. Yun Shishir choked violently and coughed repeatedly. Yu saw this and quickly went over to pat her back gently. He glared at Xiao Yiqin and snorted coldly. "Mu Yiqin, are you deliberately trying to make Mommy angry?" "Because I really hate Qin Yuyan." Xiao Yiqin pursed his lips and said. Chapter 2473. Yun Shishir was touched and said, "Yu, you are really Mommy's best friend." Yu nodded and said, "Mommy, don't worry. Even if I go to hell, I will be with you." Yun Shishir was silent and her eyes twitched. "Is it that tragic?" "Yes. Mommy, your Weibo is exploding." "Exploding? Your fans are exploding your Weibo." Xiao Yiqin sat down at the table and said, "The sister who played Qin Changle must be very proud now. It seems that all the audience hates Qin Yuyan. This character is so unlikable. Mommy, why did you give up the role of the female lead and play this vicious woman?" "Because Qin Yuyan has a very moving character." When Yun Shishir first read the script, she also felt that Qin Yuyan was too horrible. However, later on she found that Qin Yuyan was not purely a bad person. Compared to Qin Changle's viciousness, Qin Yuyan's so-called viciousness was just a way to protect herself. The author of the original novel communicated with her and was surprised to know that she would play Qin Yuyan. The author said, "Although I am the author of the original novel, I have no say in the choice of actors. However, I was still surprised to know that you would play the role. Although Qin Yuyan is a vicious character, if you look carefully, you will find that she has sincerity and kindness that even Qin Chengel doesn't have. However, this kindness was killed in the end. Qin Yuyan had to fight for it. Although she is selfish, she is very realistic. If you play it well enough, I believe that this role will be a milestone in your career. Sure, an actress's acting skills can conquer any audience. Even if the character was vicious, if she could conquer the audience with her acting skills, it would be a great achievement. That was why she insisted on playing the role of Qin Yuyan. After the TV series was broadcast, it became the #1 movie. The total number of online views reached 100 million and the average number of subscriptions was 30 million. Overnight, the TV series Lethal Beauty added millions of members to the video websites. At the same time, Lin Ji, who played Qin Chengel, continued to have more and more fans on Weibo. Meanwhile, Yun Shishir lost more than 10,000 fans overnight. Although it wasn't a lot, the phenomenon of fans dropping was continuous. On the other side, Lin Ji was grinning from ear to ear. With the role of Qin Chengel, Lin Ji seemed to have returned to her former glory. Variety shows, commercials, endorsements, interviews and so on, she had a full schedule. Because of this role, all the audience seemed to have lost their memories. They had forgotten all about the series of bad and despicable deeds she had done at the film festival. Therefore, in a place like the entertainment industry, no matter how dark your past was, as long as your public relations were in place, there would always be a day when you could clear your name. Lin Ji's popularity, which had been dormant for a long time, seemed to have recovered overnight. Her dazzling performance in the TV series had won her a lot of popularity. Many fans were so immersed in the show that they went to her Weibo to cheer her on. It turned out that a character could also whitewash a person. Yun Shishir finally realized this. Chapter 2474. On Weibo, the criticism of Qin Yuyan was in full swing, but no one cared about Yun Shishir's superb acting skills. Everyone was immersed in Qin Yuyan's vicious shrewdness and completely ignored the fact that, in terms of acting skills, Yun Shishir absolutely crushed Lin Ji. Lin Ji's acting skills were only commendable, but her acting skills overshadowed any other character in the film. Mushi said, "The TV festival is coming soon. Shishir, I'm really looking forward to it. With this villain role of Qin Yuyan, you'll definitely win the Best Supporting Actress award. The TV festival is just like the film festival. There are many shady deals, so you can't take everything for granted, lest you return disappointed in the end." Yun Shishir rubbed her forehead and said irritably, "The things that have been troubling me recently are true. Honestly speaking, Mushi, I like acting and enjoy the sense of accomplishment of using my acting skills to conquer the audience. However, the entertainment industry gives me a feeling that it's more of a foul atmosphere. For example, Lin Ji, Yan Bingqing and Li Xianhe. In Lethal Beauty, every woman in the harem is fighting, but I feel that in real life the entertainment industry is like a huge harem. The audience is like an emperor with great power, but sometimes they're like muddle-headed monarchs who are blinded by their rationality. As for these women in the entertainment industry, they live in a world of open strife and veiled strife every day. They only see the newcomers smiling and not the old ones crying. Everyone is like Qin Yuyan, scheming and using all means to climb up the ladder." Mushi frowned and suddenly sat down beside her, gently covering the back of her hand. "Shishir, I know that you've worked very hard. I've seen it all, but you don't have to tire yourself out. I'm sorry, I must have complained too much and given you a lot of psychological pressure. In the future, no matter how big the injustice is, I won't give you any more trouble. You're not the one giving me trouble, so why are you blaming yourself? But I seem to have transmitted a lot of negative energy to you. Idiot, that's enough. I'm just complaining." "Oh right." The door behind him was suddenly pushed open. Exhausted, Gu Xingze pushed open the door and walked into the dressing room. Just then he heard Yun Shishir ask Mushi with a smile, "Can you help me apply for leave from Qinzhou tomorrow? I've already applied for leave from the production team, so I won't be able to film for the next 5 days." "What's the matter that requires you to take so many days off?" she asked curiously. Yun Shishir smiled sweetly and blushed. Then she smiled and said, "I'm going to take my wedding photos." Gu Xingze stood at the door, petrified as if he had been struck by lightning. Just as Mushi was about to say something, she caught a glimpse of a tall figure at the door. She could not help but turn her head. When she saw Gu Xingze, she got a shock and exclaimed in shock, Xingze, you're here?" Hearing this, Yun Shishir furrowed her brows. Her heart skipped a beat as she turned to look at the door, only to see Gu Xingze leaning against it. His deep-set eyes were buried in his fringe, so she could not see his face clearly. She had actually forgotten that they had 2 scenes together today. She tugged at her lips and greeted him awkwardly, Xingze? What followed next was a stiff and cold atmosphere, and she did not know how to break the deadlock. Chapter 2475. I'm not avoiding you. Gu Xingze's lips curled into a smile when he heard this. He took a few steps toward her and stopped in front of her desk. Then why did you ask the production team to stagger our filming schedules? Yun Shishir's face stiffened as she froze in shock. The reason why she and Gu Xingze had never bumped into each other after being in the production team for so long was indeed that she had specially instructed the production team to stagger their filming schedules if they did not have any scenes with each other. Sometimes when Gu Xingze was done filming and left the set, she would arrive at the same time. When she was done filming and left the set, Gu Xingze would arrive at the set. The two of them just happened to stagger in time. There was no choice today as they had two scenes with each other. Since the start of filming, she seemed to have been raising her conditions. The production team fulfilled them one by one, making her feel ashamed. Hence, she naturally could not be too willful. Is it because of Li Xianer? Gu Xingze suddenly probed nervously. Are you angry because of this matter? Yun Shishir did not respond. Beside her, Mushi suddenly said indignantly, Hey, don't talk about Li Xianer anymore. She's been creating a lot of hype recently, and the studio is full of complaints because of this. Sir Xingze, Qin Zhou said that you have the means to deal with it, so why haven't you dealt with that woman after so long? Gu Xingze glanced at her coldly. Mushi immediately realized that her tone seemed to be overboard. She lowered her head and did not dare to speak again. Yun Shishir, however, had a perfect smile on her face as she raised a brow disapprovingly. Why should I be angry? Gu Xingze was stunned. Although Li Xianer has gone overboard, her ultimate goal is to ride on my popularity and become famous. Since that's the case, I'll just do as she wishes. Anyway, I don't care about this. I entered this industry purely because I like acting. I won't feel reluctant to leave when I'm tired of it. Whether it's popularity or fame, there's no need to force things. There's no need to put the cart before the horse. Sure. Actually, I feel that the hype of that incident is a bit inexplicable. Everyone had their own private life, and others had no right to interfere. You're the most pitiful one. You're being used by Li Xianer to increase your popularity, and the media is using you to increase your clicks. Xingze, if you want to talk about how you feel, I feel indignant for you. That's all. Gu Xingze's face stiffened. He frowned but did not say anything. Yun Shishir suddenly laughed at herself. What's there for me to be angry about? Do you think I'll be angry because you've ruined yourself over and over again? Mushi was stunned. Her words were a little too harsh. Gu Xingze was also surprised. Xingze, Yun Shishir said hesitantly, you're actually very outstanding. If you feel tired, you can quit the entertainment industry and choose to live in seclusion. Leave this foul place and live freely. This place is not suitable for you. If I leave this place, where else can I go? Gu Xingze suddenly retorted. He had no home to return to. He entered the entertainment industry at a young age. It had been 11 years since then, and he had created countless glory. Whether it was popularity, acting skills, or even singing, he had achieved the pinnacle of success that everyone looked up to but could not reach. Chapter 2476. However, the leisurely days left him at a loss for what to do. Perhaps, his life was destined to be cold and cheerless from the moment he was born. He would open his eyes coldly, cry coldly, and laugh coldly. One day in the future he would leave this world coldly and quietly. He had always been alone in this world. For as long as he could remember, no one seemed to have entered his heart. He had closed himself off time and time again, but there was once a ray of sunlight shining into his world. However, such bright and beautiful warmth did not belong to him. He was a stubborn man to the end. Once he set his mind on something or someone, he would not change his mind no matter what. Until the end of his life. Gu Xingze suddenly curled his lips and said, You don't have to ask about it, but I want you to know that I'm not a scourge. You don't have to avoid me. Also, I heard that you're holding a wedding soon. I'd like to congratulate you in advance and wish you happiness. Also, you don't have to worry that I won't forget you. I have my pride and self-esteem. Once you've made up your mind, I won't turn back. Therefore, you don't have to worry about me pestering you. In fact, I've never done anything to trouble you. After a pause, he sucked in a breath of cold air and said calmly, Sure, I've already let go long ago and let go of my so-called obsession. I'm not the kind of man who pesters you and won't give up even if he can't have you. If you find Li Xianer's matter troubling, I'll deal with it properly. I'm deeply sorry for the trouble I've caused you because of my personal reasons. His distant and cold words were extremely resolute. He forced himself to say those words calmly and decisively. He pretended to be calm in order to make her believe that he had let go of all his obsessions. After Gu Xingze said this, he slowly turned around and left without looking back. Mu Shi watched him leave in a daze. When she turned around, she saw Yun Shishir with her head lowered and an expressionless face. Rather than saying that he was expressionless, it would be better to say that he was trying hard to suppress some kind of emotion. His tightly clenched fists suddenly loosened. Mu Shi thought to herself that, in her eyes, Shishir and Xingze were actually a match made in heaven. If Shishir could be with Xingze, she would probably be very happy, right? Gu Xingze was really affectionate. Sometimes, when you loved someone deeply but couldn't get them, you had to force yourself to restrain your obsession. Must be very painful. She knew that very well. Mu Shi once thought that it would be great if Shishir could be with Xingze. However, she wasn't someone who would randomly match a couple. It could be seen that Shishir was very happy now. Her heart belonged to someone, so she could only give her blessings. It was just that fate was a strange thing. She wanted to ask Shishir if she had met Gu Xingze at the beginning of her destiny, would she have chosen him without hesitation? Unfortunately, there were no ifs. Yun Shishir adjusted her emotions. After she was done with her makeup, she rushed to the set and started filming. However, she seemed to be in a bad state and was a little absent-minded. Compared to Gu Xingze's engrossed acting state, her eyes were unfocused and her expression empty. The director was not satisfied with a few takes. It was not until the 5th take that he walked up to her and asked, "Shishir, are you not in the right state today?" "Yes, I'm not feeling well." Chapter 2477. Gu Xingze suddenly said, "We'll shoot a long shot today. When she's in a better state, we'll do a close-up." "That works too." The director asked deliberately, "Shishir, you'll be fine with her back view, right? Hang in there for a while more and go home early to rest after you're done." "Okay." The rest of the shoot went exceptionally smoothly. After Gu Xingze's scenes were over, he left first. Yun Shishir stayed behind to shoot her scene with Hua Jin. By the time it was over, it was already 7 in the evening. When they left the set, Hua Jin nagged that he wanted to hitch a ride in Yun Shishir's nanny van. The reason was simple. "My car broke down this morning and was towed to the garage." Yun Shishir was surprised. "Your car broke down?" "Yeah. I just bought a second-hand Mercedes-Benz that costs more than 300,000. But I think it was scammed by a scammer. It's in terrible condition and keeps breaking down." "Second-hand?" Yun Shishir asked suspiciously. "I remember that you have your own nanny van and private car. Didn't you drive a GTR before?" Hua Jin turned his face away and pretended to be oblivious. "I don't care. I want to hitch a ride in your nanny van. I haven't experienced such a luxurious nanny van before." Yun Shishir complained quietly, "Hua Jin, you seem to be down and out recently." As soon as she said that, Hua Jin suddenly stopped in his tracks. Yun Shishir turned around in surprise and saw him standing there with a faint smile on his face. She asked in surprise, "What's wrong?" Hua Jin said innocently, "How do I look down and out? Compared to when you were on the set of Lethal Beauty, you drove a flashy sports car, had 7 or 8 assistants and managers, and were surrounded by a huge entourage. But you seem to be more low-key recently. You don't drive a GTR but a second-hand car." "Because I can't afford a new car. I can't afford a new Mercedes-Benz." "What?" Yun Shishir asked curiously, "Where's your GTR?" "I returned it to her." "Ah." Yun Shishir was stunned for a moment and did not react for a moment. Hua Jin looked up and smiled. "I've cut ties with her." Yun Shishir stared at him blankly. It took her a few seconds to realize who Hua Jin was referring to. She couldn't help but look surprised and relieved. "You've severed ties with her?" "Yes." Hua Jin slowly caught up with her and looked up at the sky. "After I cut ties with her, I returned the car, branded jewelry, apartment and credit cards that she bought for me. In order to compensate her, I transferred all the assets under my name to her. Of course there are still some leftovers." "What's the change?" "Less than 1 million. Yun Shishir was speechless for a moment. "That's just a small fraction? I didn't expect you to be a tycoon." "You think?" Hua Jin said proudly, "Since my debut, I've earned about 200 to 300 million from my remuneration, endorsements and some investments." Yun Shishir was taken aback. "Oh my god. That's a lot." "Yeah, my photo album last year sold a few million copies in Asia." "That much?" Chapter 2478. Depression? Don't you know? Hua Jin scoffed. "There's been some political turmoil in Japan and South Korea recently, especially in South Korea. With the emergence of THAAD, anti-Korean sentiment is very high, so cultural exchanges between the two countries have been stifled. Yun Shirshir said sympathetically, "No wonder you've been so tight on money recently. I rented an apartment in the city center and used the rest to buy a car. There's not much left in my account." Yun Shirshir suddenly smiled and patted him on the shoulder. She said generously, "It's just a Mercedes-Benz, I'll give it to you." "You'll give it to me?" "Yes. I'll give you the latest E-Class AMG. Hua Jin said awkwardly, "I don't want it." Yun Shirshir frowned. "What? I can see that your eyes clearly say that you really want it. Isn't a Mercedes-Benz man's ultimate dream?" Hua Jin snorted. "My ultimate dream isn't that superficial." "Then what's your ultimate dream?" Hua Jin immediately said proudly, "Since you said it's your ultimate dream, how can you talk about it so casually?" Yun Shirshir was peeved for a second before she snorted proudly. "If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Even if you want to say it, I don't want to hear it." The two bickered all the way to the nanny van. In the hospital, the atmosphere in the ward was stifling. Lu Jingtian's heart-wrenching cries could be heard from time to time. Her vocal cords were damaged, so even when she spoke, her voice was extremely hoarse and broken. Lu Bushing and his mother stood outside the ward, heartbroken as they looked at the woman lying on the bed moaning in pain. Lu Jingtian was lying on the bed with 7 or 8 doctors and nurses surrounding her. 2 were in charge of stabilizing her emotions while the rest were in charge of changing her dressing. The process of changing the dressing was extremely painful. Lu Jingtian was almost going crazy from the torture of changing the dressing. She really did not understand. She clearly did not use a knife, but when the medicine was applied to her wound over and over again, it felt as if her flesh was being cut off with 1,000 cuts every time. Every 2 days he had to change the dressing. Every time he had to change the dressing it would take an hour. Lu Jingtian broke out in a cold sweat when the dressing was changed. She even thought that if living had to be so painful, she might as well end her own life. Ever since she was rescued, she had continued to have nightmares. She was half awake intermittently. In her muddle-headed state, she could vaguely hear her mother crying, her father blaming himself, and the pitiful and helpless sighs of the doctors and nurses. "Doctor, is there really no hope for my daughter's face? We've done our best. No matter how brilliant the plastic surgery technology is, it will be difficult to repair such a large area of trauma." Lu Jingtian could vaguely hear the heart-wrenching conversation. She even wondered why she had to be resuscitated and why she could not just quietly end her life on the cold operating table. She couldn't open her mouth and speak. If she had the chance to speak again, she would definitely beg her mother and the doctor to euthanize her. She didn't want to live in such pain. Don't live in such a sorry state. Chapter 2479. However, the most ridiculous thing was that she could not bear to bite off her tongue. She was too weak. That woman had succeeded. Yes, she was reaping what she sowed. If she had not disfigured Yun Na's face back then, she would not be lying on this bed in such a pathetic state. Yun Na had succeeded. She had succeeded in destroying herself. She had completely destroyed herself. She could not bear to live on in humiliation. She could not bear to see herself become so ugly and still welcome the bright dawn with a bright smile. Every morning, she would look at the morning sun outside the window and feel that her world would forever sink into darkness and despair. The ray of sunlight outside the window could no longer shine into her heart. However, every time she saw her mother crying and father sighing by the bedside, she would encourage herself again and again. Live on. She was not even afraid of death, so why should she be afraid of living? Perhaps she could recover well? Perhaps advanced medical technology could give her a brand new life? Perhaps she still had a future? However, with the recovery of her body's senses, the unparalleled pain quickly eroded her willpower. It was precisely because of this that she suddenly realized that sometimes, living was the truly cruel thing to do. Living on was torture. From then on she was a cripple. She could no longer hug the man she loved. She could no longer wear a beautiful dress. She could no longer put on her favorite lipstick. She couldn't even face her own demon-like face. Even being able to walk properly had become a luxury. She vaguely heard that the area of her right leg was too large for skin grafting. If the infection was serious, she would have to face amputation. Amputation. When she heard this news, she felt dizzy and wanted to cry, but no tears came out. She broke down and asked in her heart, could it be that even the right to walk like a healthy person is being cruelly taken away? Could it be that she would have to spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair? Her mother kept comforting her. "Tian, don't be afraid. If you really can't keep your leg, I'll take good care of you for the rest of your life." Lu Jingtian could not speak. She cried bitterly in her heart and asked, what if you and father are no longer around? Who would take care of a cripple like her? Why don't I just end my own life right now? After the dressing was changed, she broke out in a cold sweat from the pain and wet the bedsheets. The nurse had no choice but to move her to the side and change the bedsheets. This kind of work brought about unimaginable pain. She was already covered in cuts and bruises. No matter where she was touched, she was in great pain. The nurse had to move her to another bed. She had to go through a lot of trouble to move her to another bed. She had to suffer a lot. Living a life worse than death. Living a life worse than death. She kept repeating these words in her heart as she clenched her teeth tightly. She kept letting her imagination run wild. Why didn't that big fire burn her to ashes? At the very least, it was just a momentary pain. At the very least, she didn't have to live so bitterly and suffer. Oh my God, please spare her. She really didn't have any will to live. Chapter 2480. Her eyes were dim and lifeless. She was completely disheartened. If not for the rising and falling of her chest, one would not be able to tell that she was still alive and would only think that she was a charred corpse. She could no longer bear it. She turned around and clutched her father's collar tightly as she tried to suppress her pain. Is there really no other way? Wuxia, are you just going to watch your daughter suffer like this? How can she go on like this? What can I do? What else can I do? If I can take her place, I'll naturally do it without any hesitation. You didn't give me that option, so I can't do anything. I'm at my wit's end. Do you think I want to watch her suffer like this? Lu Wuxia's heart ached uncontrollably. He sighed deeply and suddenly lowered his voice. If I could, it's not that I haven't considered euthanasia, but I just can't muster up the courage to do it. Moreover, maybe she also wanted to live well. Maybe she also had a strong will to live. You're her mother, you must be stronger than her. Euthanasia? His mother shuddered when she heard this term. She pushed him away and asked sharply, Are you crazy? She's your biological daughter, yet you want to kill her with your own hands. Are you crazy? Seeing that his words had been misinterpreted, he waved his hand in annoyance and said, Calm down. Calm down. We both need to calm down now. With that, he pushed the door open and walked to the corridor to smoke. His mother fell back into the chair and covered her face with her hands. She wanted to cry, but she held it in and did not shed a single tear. Sometimes, when one was in a state of great grief, one could not even shed tears. She was transferred from the emergency room to the ICU for half a month, and the pain was unbearable. After 5 painful changes of dressing, she finally passed the infection period and could try to get out of bed. Getting out of bed meant that she was about to enter the rehabilitation period. The doctor repeatedly reminded her that the rehabilitation period might be very long. She had severe burns and her muscles, memory and nerves were damaged. If she did not train, it would inevitably lead to muscle atrophy. Rehabilitation was very painful, but no matter how painful it was, he had to face it. After she got out of bed, she tried to walk around the ward twice and was already gasping for breath from the pain. The next day she could finally try to walk back and forth 4 times. Slowly, she could already try to push open the door of the ward with her hand and walk out of the ward. A sense of relief slowly surfaced in her heart. She finally felt the joy of being human again. She thought that as long as she didn't look in the mirror in the future, there should be no problem, right? She worked hard to live on, even if it was for the sunshine of tomorrow, for the beautiful sunset. Although she wanted to give up her life more than once, she was also greedy for the beauty of life more than once. She still had a lot of unfinished business. Her body was recovering well and was optimistic. The doctor also said that if she continued to recover at this rate, she might be able to save her leg and avoid amputation. Lu Jingtian was greatly encouraged. The doctor's encouragement gave her a glimmer of hope. If medical technology was developed in the future, it might not be too difficult to reconstruct one's appearance. Chapter 2481. On this day, when Lu Wuxia's mother and mother were not in the ward, she tried to get out of bed by herself. She staggered to the door of the ward and supported herself against the wall, trying to walk for a while. She tried her best to do more rehabilitation and to get better as soon as possible. That way she would be able to leave this ward filled with the smell of disinfectant. Lu Jingtian slowly walked with her hands against the wall. All of a sudden, she heard a little girl's playful voice not far away. Immediately after, a rubber ball rolled to her feet. She took a deep look at it, gritted her teeth, and tried to reach out her hand to pick up the small rubber ball. She opened her fingers and picked it up with much difficulty. The joy of success instantly lit up her eyes. A series of lively footsteps quickly approached her and stopped in front of her. Immediately after, a little girl's innocent voice was heard. "Auntie, this is my rubber ball. The soft voice of a child sounded very young, about 7 or 8 years old, and was very cute and obedient. Lu Jingtian raised her head in surprise and looked at the little girl in front of her. However, when the little girl saw her face and the scars on her body, her bright and beautiful smile froze on her face and her whole body shuddered. She could not help but widen her eyes in horror. Her face was filled with fear and trepidation. She took a few steps back in horror and staggered before she burst into tears. Wah! There's a monster! Wah 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 wah! What a scary monster! Wah wah wah! Mommy! Help! A monster wants to eat Xin. There's a monster! Lu Jingtian was petrified as if she had been struck by lightning. Her hand involuntarily loosened, and the rubber ball fell to the ground and rolled to the side. The little girl's continuous crying alerted the nurse. The girl's mother also rushed over from another ward when she heard the commotion. She ran over in a panic to carry the little girl, thinking that an adult was deliberately scaring the child. When she turned her head, she saw Lu Jingtian, who was frozen in the corner, and the anger on her face disappeared. She was stunned for a few seconds before she finally realized what had happened. The child was probably playful and accidentally bumped into this person. Then she was frightened by the woman's appearance and cried. Lu Jingtian took note of the woman's face. Her fair skin was delicate and soft. Her pair of gentle eyes were as exquisite as a painting. Her entire face was perfect without a single flaw. When he thought of himself, he immediately felt ashamed of his own inferiority. Lu Jingtian's heart ached terribly. She lowered her head, unwilling to expose her face to others. I'm not a monster. I just want to pick up the ball for her. I'm not a monster. But, that girl said she was a monster? She couldn't help but be curious. Just how terrifying was her face? How terrifying must it be for an ignorant girl to yell and call it a monster? The woman scolded the girl and then apologized to her. I'm sorry. I'm sorry? The child is not sensible and her words carry no harm. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry, I'm very sorry. The woman kept apologizing. Perhaps she also realized that because of the child's innocent words, she had deeply hurt a disfigured girl. Chapter 2482. If not, she should have an ordinary face, right? Still, even such a face was enough to make her envious. Once again she felt lost. Once again she recognized the cruel truth. Suddenly, like a deserter, she turned around and groped her way into the ward. Feeling extremely guilty, the woman chased after her, wanting to apologize again. However, Lu Jingtian wailed and waved her hands hysterically. The woman who was carrying the child was frightened. The scene was extremely ugly. Lu Jingtian broke down and wailed, and the child wailed in fear. The woman stood rooted to the ground in embarrassment, not knowing whether to leave or apologize. A nurse ran over and immediately calmed her down. After understanding the situation from the woman, she quickly resolved this embarrassing situation. The woman left with the child in her arms. Lu Jingtian was helped to the ward by the nurse. A few nurses helped her to the bed and then left the ward. Once they were gone, Lu Jingtian suddenly struggled to sit up in bed. She got off the bed in a frenzy and staggered, almost falling. She stumbled to the sofa and found her mother's bag in the ward. After rummaging through it for a while, she finally found a sleek box. It was a makeup box. She clutched the makeup box tightly in her hand and took it out of the bag. She opened it, but her fingertips couldn't stop trembling. Ever since she was rescued and regained consciousness, she had mentioned more than once that she wanted to see how badly her face was ruined. When she was burned, she was still conscious, so she knew very well where the fire had burned and destroyed. When the fire burned her face, it was so painful that even her eyelashes were burned off. Her face was definitely ruined, but she did not know how badly it was ruined. Lu Bushing kept preventing her from looking at the mirror, advising her kindly that she should look at her face after it had completely recovered. Her mother also coaxed her and kept her from looking at the mirror. It was only later that she gradually stopped caring about this matter. Or perhaps, as if she was deceiving herself, she simply stopped thinking about it and focused on recovering her body as soon as possible. However, when she walked out of the door earlier, a child saw her face and cried in fright, calling her a monster. She was suddenly jolted awake and desperately wanted to know how horrible her face was at this moment. She was actually called a monster by a child. However, when she held the makeup box in her hand, she became a little timid. She suddenly did not dare to look at it. She was a little timid, a little scared, and a little flustered. She was afraid that she would break down, be upset, and be unable to accept it when she saw her face. Just as she was struggling internally, she suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air, mustered up her courage and slowly opened the box. She then opened her eyes and looked at the small mirror in the box. Ah! she screamed. It was only when the face in the mirror showed a panicked expression that she realized that the unbearable face in the mirror really belonged to her. It turned out that her face was even more damaged than she had imagined. Riddled with holes, unsightly. Chapter 2483. By the time Madame Lu rushed back to the hospital, it was already close to evening. As the nurses were changing shifts, she hurried into the ward, only to see that the lights were off. She hurriedly turned on the lights, and the moment the ward was lit up, a figure curled up in a corner of the sofa came into her sight. She took a step back in shock, and only then did she realize that the person curled up on the sofa was Lu Jingtian. "Tian, why are you sitting here?" asked Madame Lu worriedly, but there was no response from her. Mama Lu immediately walked over worriedly, only to find that she was curled up in a corner like a zombie. There was no sign of life on her body. She was just curled up there motionless. Her hands hung empty by her side, and even her back was devoid of any signs of life. She was about to ask her about it worriedly when she followed the direction of her hand and saw the makeup box on the floor. Her heart skipped a beat, and she felt suffocated for a moment. She nervously picked up the box and opened it, only to see that the mirror inside had several cracks and was in pieces. Madame Lu immediately realized what had happened. She was probably desperate to find out what had happened to her face, so she frantically searched for a mirror to take a look. Alas, when she finally saw her face, she could not accept it, and that was why she had been unable to recover from the setback until now. Lu Jingtian's mother's heart ached as she gently patted her shoulder. Just as she was about to say a few words of consolation, the latter abruptly swatted her hand away and shrank further into the corner. She screamed at her with a face full of helplessness and despair. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. Madame Lu's heart ached as she rushed forward and carefully hugged her daughter. She cried, "Tian, don't be like this. Don't scare Mommy. Mommy is scared. Don't be scared, Mommy is here. Mommy will protect you and won't let anyone hurt you, okay? Stop screaming." Her words, however, did not reach Lu Jingtian. She continued to cry and throw a tantrum, as if to vent all the pain, exhaustion, and unbearable sadness of the past few days. She had a complete mental breakdown. That was because she had seen her face in that one glance and she was utterly defeated. Fear, helplessness, loneliness, and despair, all these emotions were entrenched in her heart. She was almost out of breath. Despite her mother's repeated coaxing, Lu Jingtian still could not stop crying. In the end, she ended up vomiting blood, which was probably due to excessive strain on her vocal cords. When she saw this, she was immediately frightened and shouted loudly for the doctor. Her shrill and fearful cries echoed in the corridor for a long time. A minute later, the doctor hurriedly rushed over. Seeing how frantic she was, he immediately prescribed a dose of tranquilizer and pushed it down her throat. Lu Jingtian's eyes rolled back as she fainted. "What's going on?" the doctor scolded. "Why are you suddenly like this? Wasn't everything fine before?" Mrs. Lu shook her head and said, "I don't know either. I left the hospital for a while and when I came back I saw her like this. Maybe she secretly looked at herself in the mirror and couldn't accept her appearance?" she guessed. Chapter 2484. Due to the innocent child's careless words, he was frightened by her appearance and called her a monster a few times. It was probably because of these words that she wanted to check her appearance in the mirror. The nurse did not say anything though. The dosage of the tranquilizer was very small, so by the time she woke up, it was already 3 in the morning. That night, it was Lu Bushing who stayed to keep her company. She knew very well that her mother had been keeping her company for 2 consecutive nights and was exhausted. Tonight, it was time for her to go home and have a good rest. Lu Bushing took her place to keep her company. As a senior executive in the company, he had to deal with a lot of work every day. Therefore, he fell asleep the moment he lay down and closed his eyes. He was in a deep sleep and from time to time he snored heavily. It seemed that he was really exhausted. She suddenly turned her head to look at the moonlight outside the window. Through the glass pane, she could see the endless night. In that instant, she made a decision. After she made this decision, her entire being strangely calmed down. There was no color on her face, and it was deathly still and gloomy like the depths of the abyss. Lu Jingtian slowly sat up and tried to do so. The hospital bed frame was a little thin, so it soon made a creaking sound. She stood still vigilantly and turned her head to look at her father, who was sleeping on the sofa. In the dark, she could still hear his smooth snoring. This strange sound did not seem to have disturbed him. She felt relieved and relaxed at the same time. She quietly lifted the quilt and struggled to move her legs. She slowly got out of bed, held the headboard for support, and slowly landed on the ground with difficulty. She stood up. This series of actions took her several minutes to complete, and she broke out in a cold sweat. The inconvenience of moving could no longer make her sad, though. That was because it was going to end soon. It was going to end these miserable days. She should have made up her mind long ago. As her thoughts ran wild, she held onto the bed for support, put on her slippers and walked toward the door with heavy footsteps. When she reached the door, she suddenly turned her head and glanced at her father who was lying on the sofa. She made quite a bit of noise when she got off the bed. Creak, creak, creak. It was even a little ear-piercing. However, he must be very tired and was in a deep sleep. Therefore he was immersed in his dreams and did not wake up. She reached out to touch the door handle. It was cold, just like her determined heart at this moment. Suddenly, she remembered that they were about to leave, so she should at least hold a farewell ceremony, right? Lu Jingtian could not help tearing up at the thought of this. It was not true that she had no worries. She still had many worries. A man's words were kind when he was about to die. She was about to make a decision with this mortal world, so she knew that she was about to bid farewell to it. She suddenly felt a great sorrow in her heart. The thing she regretted the most in life was being young and frivolous. She had caused her parents a lot of grievances and often made them angry. Until the very last moment, it would definitely bring them a lot of pain and suffering. She had originally wanted to write a will, but forgive her. It was so difficult for her to even hold a pen now. Chapter 2485. At the very least, he did not need to take care of a burden like her. The two of them could enjoy their remaining years, right? She was a cripple after all. It would take a lot of effort to take care of her. She did not have the conviction to live on and be a burden to them. At the very end, leave them some peace and quiet, right? Lu Jingtian's thoughts ran wild again. She walked to the sofa and opened her mouth, but all she could taste was a hint of fishy sweetness. The words goodbye were stuck in her throat and she could not say them out loud. Her lips moved as if to say goodbye, but her tears fell at once. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I can't repay you for raising me. Now I have to say goodbye. If there's an afterlife, I'll definitely repay you. Please don't worry about me or miss me because leaving is the best way for me to be free. She said goodbye silently in her heart. Holding back her tears, she walked to the door, pushed it open and walked out. The corridor was quiet. She held onto the wall as she walked. Dressed in a snow-white hospital gown, she looked like a lonely ghost at first glance. The lights were dim and only the nurse's desk was lit. At this moment, the nurses on duty were lying on the desk with their eyes closed. Lu Jingtian walked very slowly to the elevator. She pressed the button for her floor, walked into the elevator with difficulty, and pressed the button for the top floor. The top floor of the hospital was 28 stories high. This hospital had been renovated and looked brand new. The towering floors were like a prison, holding many patients who were either in pain or in pain. She went to the top floor, passed through the fire escape and walked to the rooftop. The door to the rooftop was not locked. Some of the nurses who lived in the dormitory would bring a change of clothes to the rooftop to dry. She walked up to the rooftop. Then she walked to the edge of the rooftop and slowly sat down while holding onto the railing. The wind at night was very cold and strong. She could not be exposed to the wind, but now she was not afraid of anything. She was finally going to be free. Not only did she not feel sad or afraid, but she was also very calm when she saw that she was about to be free. So calm that it was frightening. She even began to imagine that when she jumped down from this rooftop, her body would fall freely and finally collide with the hard ground. She would probably be smashed to pieces from the height of 28 floors, right? Pain was inevitable. It was inevitable that he would be in a sorry state. What came with this, though, was the fact that she no longer had to face her ugly face and the constant physical and mental torture. Instead, she felt much more at ease. Her lips tugged into a forlorn smile. Looking into the distance, she could just see the neon lights of the city. She recognized that it was a street of bars. If this accident did not happen, she would probably be in those bars and nightclubs at this time, indulging herself in luxury and enjoying a night of debauchery with those unrestrained men and women. Only after losing something would one realize how precious what they once had was. However, at this time, no amount of regret could make up for it. Lu Jingtian sat on the edge of the balcony in silence for a long time. It was only when the wind turned cold and her head hurt that she finally got to her feet. She stood up shakily and straightened her body. With her back facing the edge of the balcony, she did not want to look at the shocking scene below. Instead, she gently leaned back. Mr. Lu? Mr. Lu? Chapter 2486. Lu Bushing was woken up by a few panicked nurses pushing him. He sat up alertly and opened his eyes, only to see a few nurses standing in front of him, looking extremely nervous. The lights in the ward were on, and it was a dazzling white. He squinted his eyes. "What's wrong?" "Bad news, your daughter, your daughter?" The nurses were so flustered that they could not form a complete sentence. However, when he heard the key words, Lu Bushing immediately became alert. He turned his head abruptly to look at the bed, but there was no one on the snow-white bed. "Where's my daughter?" He jumped up from the sofa in agitation, grabbed one of the nurses and questioned, "Where did she go?" Before the nurse could speak, an ear-piercing siren pierced through the night sky outside the window. Lu Bushing's bloodshot eyes widened. As if he suddenly realized something, he pushed the crowd aside and rushed out of the door. 2 police cars drove into the inpatient department. Soon the sirens stopped and a few policemen got out of the cars. The empty ground of the building was crowded with people. Some were the patients who were hospitalized, some were family members who stayed overnight, and some were the hospital's caregivers and cleaning aunties, as well as nurses and on-duty doctors. Everyone was gathered in one place, bowing their heads, shaking their heads and sighing, as if they were lamenting something heavy. Lu Bushing rushed out of the inpatient building and immediately noticed that the fountain not far away was crowded with people. His entire body trembled as he frowned in disbelief. His eyes quickly turned red and widened as he sucked in a few breaths of cold air in disbelief. The fountain was some distance away from the entrance. Lu Bushing did not know how he managed to walk this distance. He only knew that he walked over in a daze. He heard the onlookers shaking their heads and sighing. Why did this little girl take things so hard? She probably jumped from the rooftop. The wind is strong at night and blew her here. Sigh, she's still so young. What a pity. Lu Bushing immediately pushed the crowd aside. Excuse me. Let me see my daughter. Let me see my daughter." When the crowd heard that the father of the deceased was here, they immediately made a path for him silently. However, there were still many kind-hearted people who said quietly, "Sir, please restrain your grief and accept this." Lu Bushing pushed through the crowd and rushed in. He immediately saw the pool of blood on the ground that was surrounded by the crowd. Falling from a high place, he died miserably. One of his legs was broken and his flesh was badly mangled. It was too horrible to look at. Lu Bushing suffered a great visual impact. He felt that he couldn't connect his breath and almost fell to the ground. The police quickly walked over to protect the scene. Then they heard a man's desperate and sorrowful cry from the crowd, "Tian Tian." The next day, news of Lu Jingtian's death by jumping off a building spread like wildfire. Lu Bushing was unable to bear the pain of losing his daughter. He suddenly suffered a myocardial infarction and was sent to the emergency room. Mama Lu, who had rushed over upon hearing the news, also fell ill when she learned that her beloved daughter had jumped to her death. The couple was sent to the emergency room at the same time. Chapter 2487. Despite Huanyu's official efforts to keep the news under wraps, there were still some astute reporters who caught wind of it. They waited at the hospital and soon learned of the matter, which they quickly released. Rookie actress Lu Jingtian met with an accident. Unable to bear the burden during her recovery, she jumped to her death from the rooftop. Lu Jingtian is Lu Bushing's beloved daughter? Rumor has it that Lu Bushing suffered a myocardial infarction due to the pain of losing his daughter. After emergency treatment, his life is no longer in danger. Lu Jingtian, disfigured by fire, jumped from the rooftop in utter despair. Her young life has ended just like that. A look at the top 10 female actresses who have died in showbiz. Another storm was stirred up on Weibo. When the public learned of this news, their curiosity was instantly aroused and they sighed. The entertainment industry had always been transparent to the public. The more popular an artist was, the more difficult it was for him or her to ensure that his or her personal life was free of interference. Some time ago, news of Lu Jingtian's disfigurement due to a fire was still trending on Weibo's trending page. Even though she had not debuted for long and did not have many works to her name, she did play a supporting role in The Green Apple some time ago and gained some fame, but it did not bring her considerable popularity. However, the public's concern for a celebrity's disfigurement was beyond imagination. Now, not long after, there was news of her suicide. The netizens were in an uproar. They could not wait to hear the news firsthand. How did Lu Jingtian commit suicide? Why did Lu Jingtian commit suicide? The tragic scene of Lu Jingtian jumping off a building? Painful reflections on Lu Jingtian's death? Is Lu Jingtian really dead? Or is it a publicity stunt by the company? A female celebrity seems to have committed suicide by jumping off a building yesterday. Ah, I know. Isn't it that Lu Jingtian? My sister is a nurse at that hospital. She was at the scene when the incident happened. I heard that she died a horrible death, even her head was smashed. Oh God. Why did she commit suicide? I heard that she was disfigured due to an accident. She probably lost the will to live and chose to end her life. How pitiful. Isn't her father very rich, though? If he has money, he can do plastic surgery and skin grafts. There's no need for her to commit suicide, right? Hehe. It's hard to explain the entertainment industry's affairs in a few words. Who knows? The Lu Jingtian, who played a supporting role in The Green Apple, actually jumped to her death last night. It's too scary. Jumping off a building to death's death to her death. Why did she commit suicide? Lu Jingtian of the family of Lu Jingtians to death, her parents to hers to s to death. B. R to her death. Haha, I don't understand what these rich people are trying to do. Of Lu to commit suicide, Lu's to s to be a topic to this to's to die of her Lu of her of her Jingtians of her of a's of her to's to Lu to her to's, to be to death hers. Most of the netizens were just curious about this incident. Chapter 2488. The next day after Lu Jingtian's death, a few unscrupulous reporters sneaked into the hospital's morgue with their SLR cameras to take photos of her body. Naturally, the hospital had strict security and quickly sent these unscrupulous reporters to the police station. However, even so, these reporters still kept the negatives. After being bailed out, they returned to the media agency and directly opened a sock puppet account. They sold the photos to netizens at high prices on the forum. The netizens bought the photos and directly published them on the internet. Although the website was quickly blocked, the photos quickly spread on the internet. Huan Yu's officials were outraged and issued an announcement to accuse these unscrupulous netizens and media outlets. They even threatened to initiate legal proceedings. Lu Jingtian's suicide kept brewing. Many celebrities and famous figures in various industries posted condolences on Weibo. In the basement of the villa, Yun Na turned on the TV. The entertainment channel was broadcasting a follow-up report of Lu Jingtian's suicide. The scene happened to cut to the hospital. Lights flashed, and Lu Bushing and his mother, dressed in plain black, were being supported by people as they walked among the crowd. Lu Bushing appeared steady and reserved, while his wife was heartbroken. She covered her face with a handkerchief. In the close-up, her eyes were red and swollen with tears, and her face was full of pain. Microphones were constantly pushed in front of them. At first, Lu Bushing tried his best to restrain himself. It was obvious that if it weren't for his public image, he would have really wanted to smash the microphones that the reporters pushed in front of him to the ground and stomp on them to vent his anger. He opened his mouth and said in a hoarse voice, "Don't push. Make way, please make way." Several bodyguards surrounded them and pushed the reporters away. The two left the hospital with heavy expressions, got into a car and sped away. Yun Na quietly picked up a cup of tea and slowly blew on it. Then she unhurriedly took a sip, appearing nonchalant. Suicide? That was really straightforward. Still, the girl was sensible and obedient enough to end her own life, saving her the trouble of making a trip to the hospital. Lu Jingtian was still alive. She was like a ticking time bomb that could explode at any time. She originally wanted to wait until the time was right for the Missy to be discharged from the hospital before making a plan to make her completely disappear from the world without leaving a trace. She did not care if Lu Jingtian's vocal cords were burned or if she could still speak or if her identity would be exposed. She had no intention of letting her live when she laid her hands on her. But he didn't expect that this bitch's life was so tough. Even such a big fire didn't burn her to death. Therefore, her heart had long been filled with killing intent. However, things had already come to this. Forget it. In any case, the ending would be the same. Since he had committed suicide by jumping off a building, it would save her a lot of worry. Yun Na silently criticized in her heart, yet a satisfied and complacent expression appeared on her face. In fact, she wasn't worried about exposing her whereabouts and identity. It was just that she couldn't expose herself in advance before completing her final mission. To put it bluntly, even if Lu Jingtian did not accuse her and Yun Yeqing did not expose her, she would not be afraid even if she was arrested. She was not afraid of death. She had not been afraid of anything since she had climbed out of hell. Chapter 2489. Lu Jingtian's incident continued to fester. On Weibo, many media outlets wrote articles, either to mourn or express their opinions. In short, the keyword, Lu Jingtian's suicide, became the hottest news in the entertainment industry. In fact, she was not particularly famous. She was just a little-known celebrity who did not have the opportunity to be exposed to the public. If she had simply committed suicide by jumping off a building, it would not be surprising, and the hype would have died down in 2 days. However, this incident was not simple and was full of doubts. Ever since she was hospitalized, her burn had become a hot topic for the public. With the media's wantonly publicity and investigation, it also whetted the public's curiosity. Although she was just a small-time celebrity to the public who had nothing to do, this matter became a topic of discussion. On the internet, many netizens questioned, how did she get burned? Who was the suspicious man in black in the video released by the police? Could it be murder? Was Lu Jingtian disfigured? If it was a vendetta, then was there a conclusion to the investigation? Was the culprit caught? If it was not a vendetta, then was there a hidden danger to the security in the capital? Just as this matter had yet to be fully explained, the news of Lu Jingtian's suicide by jumping off a building quickly swept across the headlines of major media outlets. Lu Jingtian's suicide was confusing from start to finish. Just 2 days after the incident, Huanyu released a painful obituary to announce the matter. The obituary read, "Our dearest Lu Jingtian committed suicide by jumping off a building on February XX at the age of 23. Lu Jingtian was a newly popular starlet who debuted with The Green Apple. Due to her outstanding acting skills and innocent looks, she gained a lot of popularity. Just a month ago, however, due to an accident, she was burned in a fire. 85% of her body was burned, causing severe disfigurement and even disability. Since the incident, the company had been paying attention to her recovery. Her family, friends, and fans were also constantly encouraging her, hoping that she would be able to walk out of her grief as soon as possible and actively cooperate with the treatment. Her recovery was ideal. Just a week ago, she successfully passed the critical and infectious stage. Just as everyone was feeling excited, 2 days ago, unfortunate news came. Our beloved Jingtian still could not walk out of the pain of her disfigurement. 2 days ago at 3 a.m., she jumped off the rooftop of a hospital building and died. What was supposed to be a beautiful season, yet she passed away. We feel sad and sorry for her. At this moment, no matter how much rhetoric and words we use, they are pale and powerless. The dead are gone and the living. We only wish her a safe journey." Once the obituary was released, many netizens who were still skeptical about the suicide case. For the past few days, Lu Jingtian's suicide was still the hottest headline, even overtaking Li Xiang'er, who had been hyped up for a while. And what about Li Xiang'er? How could he let the matter rest? Naturally, it wouldn't stop there. Chapter 2490. The deceased should always be respected. Despite such a tragedy, Li Xiang'er was still trying her best to hype things up. Many netizens hated her face. When Li Xiang'er saw this comment, she coldly mocked, "What else can be considered pure in the entertainment industry? Hate it? Hate it as much as you want. My reputation is already so bad. Since that's the case, I'll focus on creating hype until I become famous." She was indignant, but she also wanted to fight for her dignity. She was determined to become an even more popular celebrity than Yun Shirshir. This had become her ambitious goal. Of course, this was all in the future. On the other side, Yun Shirshir, together with the two lads and Mu Yaja, boarded a private flight to Norway for the first stop of the wedding photoshoot. On the day of Lu Jingtian's suicide, she happened to be on the plane with her phone switched off. Thus, she was unaware of such an earth-shattering incident in the entertainment industry. Qin Zhou had been busy assisting Ji Lin in dealing with Lu Jingtian's matter. Lu Jingtian's father, a senior executive of Huanyu, was unable to recover from the loss of his beloved daughter and was bedridden. Hence, after this incident, the funeral was handed over to Ji Lin to handle. Everyone in Huanyu was solemn and busy. Qin Zhou did not specifically inform Yun Shirshir. After all, her wedding photoshoot was a joyous occasion, and he naturally did not want to dampen her spirits. Hence, he took some time out of his busy schedule to log onto Yun Shirshir's Weibo and post his condolences. Of course, this time he had learned his lesson. In order to prevent the previous blunder from happening again, he specially found a phone of the same model as Yun Shirshir's and logged onto Weibo. The netizens did not question him. Yun Shirshir was completely unaware of this matter and was still immersed in the joy of happiness. Mu Yaja told her that, in order to pursue perfection, they had specially selected several countries for this wedding photoshoot, such as Paris and Italy, which she yearned for. As a romantic country, Norway was naturally a good choice. The two little munchkins also wanted to go, so Yun Shirshir brought the two little guys along. After all, they would be gone for a week, and she was worried about leaving the two little guys alone at home. In Norway, he met with Mankey Harding. Mankey followed them throughout the entire wedding photoshoot trip. Mu Yaja had already finalized the schedule with him before this. Their first stop was Trolltunga in Norway. Trolltunga was a magical rock located in the Skjeggedal mountain in Norway. It was also translated as Giant's Tongue in Chinese. The reason why it was called Giant's Tongue was because the rock protruded far out of the cliff like a tongue, so it was called Giant's Tongue. Trolltunga mountain was steep. For the sake of scenery and safety, Muyaja used a helicopter to land directly on the mountain. As for Mankey, he climbed up another mountain in the distance to film the scene. On the beautiful Trolltunga, there were extremely stunning silhouettes. A total of 5 shots were taken, but for these 5 shots the team went through a lot of trouble and put in a lot of effort. At first, when the helicopter landed, Yun Shirshir jumped out of the helicopter. However, she was stunned by the spectacular and thrilling scene in front of her. It was too high. It was too steep. Chapter 2491. It was no wonder that this was one of the must-visit attractions for adventure enthusiasts. The rock wasn't big and could only accommodate a few people standing on it. If they wanted to climb up, they had to take the cable car to the mountainside and then climb up a flight of stairs. However, after going through so much effort to climb up the Giant's Tongue, the scenery was indescribable. If they climbed up on their own, they would definitely feel a great sense of accomplishment, right? Yun Shirshir thought to herself. However, it would definitely be very dangerous. Muyaja said to her, perhaps in the near future, this spectacular landmark will disappear. Yun Shirshir asked curiously, why? Do you know how this Trolltunga was formed? Yun Shirshir shook her head. He said slowly, the Trolltunga that is suspended in midair is the result of rock weathering. After a long period of wind, sun and rain, the broken rock has been taken away, leaving only the hard part standing. Perhaps as time passes, it will also fall off the cliff. The Trolltunga was formed more than 10,000 years ago during the Ice Age. The water flow from the melting glaciers eroded most of the rocks over the years and finally formed such a unique landscape. After the shoot, the group returned to the hotel. Yun Shirshir was still immersed in the shock from earlier. The filming location in Norway this time was Muyaja's suggestion, so she naturally agreed. Along the way, she was still curious about the unique landscape in Norway. However, when she saw the Trolltunga with her own eyes, Yun Shirshir was deeply shocked. After the trip ended, she still wanted to see more. How did you come up with the idea to film the Trolltunga? Yun Shirshir couldn't help but ask curiously. I've seen it in a magazine before. Some mountaineering enthusiasts filmed it in a blockbuster. I was shocked, so I thought of it immediately. Muyaja paused and asked, why are you asking this? What magazine? Geographic magazine. Oh, Yun Shirshir raised her eyebrows and looked a little surprised. So, you don't just read financial magazines? Of course. Muyaja couldn't help but flick her forehead and asked unhappily, am I that rigid in your heart? Yun Shirshir covered her forehead and snickered. I just didn't expect you to pay attention to things other than work. Muyaja snorted coldly to show his displeasure. He wasn't going to tell her that after he decided to take the wedding photos, he had secretly scouted a lot of places, from Italy to Norway, from Paris to Prague, from Phuket to the Maldives. He had put in a lot of effort just to take the perfect wedding photos. Naturally, women were not the only ones who looked forward to wedding photos. Men also had many ideas. A woman in a wedding dress is the most beautiful. At the youngest and most beautiful age, she put on a holy wedding dress and became his wife. However, with the passage of time, no matter how beautiful her appearance was, it would eventually fade away. To him, a wedding was a once-in-a-lifetime event. Hence, he wanted to keep this happiest moment as a memento. After a few decades, when their hair turned white and they gradually grew old, these happy moments would become precious memories and mementos. He would treasure her best years forever. Chapter 2492. At the thought of this, Muyaja gently kissed her sideburns. Wedding photos? Inside the cafe, when Song Enya suggested that they take their wedding photos as soon as possible, the expression on Mu Yenqing's face turned frostier. Suddenly, he tugged at the corners of his lips into a half-smile. It was hard to decipher the meaning behind his smirk. He picked up his coffee cup and took a sip before looking up at the woman opposite him with a mocking and playful gaze. Song Enya, who was sitting opposite him, felt a little uneasy and embarrassed by the man's nonchalant mockery. She snapped, "What are you laughing at? It turns out that Miss Song is quite sentimental, huh? Wedding photos?" Mu Yenqing sneered again. "Why don't we just forego the wedding photo shoot? Such things are too pretentious. There's no point in taking them. Besides, you know very well why I married you. Don't you find it repulsive to have me stand next to you for a wedding photo?" With that, he shook his head. "Forget it. Isn't taking wedding photos one of the wedding procedures?" Song Enya said unhappily, Since we're getting married, we naturally have to go through all the ceremonies and procedures. You know that I'm the eldest daughter of the Song family, so our wedding is very important. This is also the reason why I asked you out this time. Other than that, what about the wedding dress to wear on the wedding day? My mom said that we're only getting married once, so the wedding has to be grand and dignified. The wedding dress must be personally designed by a famous designer, and it has to be custom made. Also, the accessories and jewels to go with the dress and the diamond ring must be of a larger size. It can't be too shabby. Song Enya was still fuming over the wedding gown incident. What right did Yun Shirshir have to have so many custom-made wedding dresses? It's just a wedding. Is there a need to have so many custom-made wedding dresses? Can she wear all of them? According to the shop assistant, some of those wedding dresses were for the wedding day, while others were for the wedding photo shoot. Brother Mu is really particular about this wedding. Even the wedding dresses for the photo shoot were custom-made for that B***TCH to choose from. Choose. He might as well pick blindly. God knows how jealous she was. Therefore, when it came to her marriage, Song Enya was especially obsessed with a wedding dress, to the point of being morbidly obsessed. The more Mu Yanqing listened, the more impatient he became. Mu Linfeng had told him that it would be beneficial for him to have the Song family on his side. Song Enya as a trump card could still be put to good use. Hence, he wanted him to be more tolerant of her. At the very least, he was not to damage the harmony between the two families. As for Song Enya's conditions, as long as they could fulfill them, they should not make things too difficult for her. They should at least consider the Song family's feelings. Alas, now that things had come to this, the sight of Song Enya's rouged face was enough to make him lose his appetite. Just sitting across from her and looking at her made him feel uncomfortable all over. Alas, he was already tired of dealing with an unruly woman like Song Enya. This time, Song Enya had asked him to come over to discuss the wedding process. Mu Yanqing happened to have some free time, so he went to meet her. Chapter 2493. Regarding Meng Qingshua's matter, he had already discussed it with Mu Linfeng. The latter had relented, saying that as long as he married Song Enya, the muse would not have any objections if he were to marry a concubine after the situation stabilized. Mu Yanqing was overjoyed when he heard this. Hence he was determined to find Meng Qingxue. He was very dissatisfied and angry with Meng Qingxue. What is this woman trying to do? She had mysteriously disappeared, mysteriously left his side, mysteriously disappeared without a trace. When she left, she did not bring much money with her. Where could she have run to? In the message, she told him that the child had been aborted. However, based on his understanding of her, he was certain that this woman would not abort the child. If she had really aborted the child, she would definitely not touch the money in the account. Before she left, she had withdrawn a sum of money from the account. It was not much, but he guessed that it was probably because it would be inconvenient for her to work when she moved to another city, so she needed a sum of money to take care of the baby. The child must have not been aborted. Mu Yanqing had been troubled by Meng Qingshua's matter. He did not know what kind of demon had possessed him to be distracted all day because of a woman. What a spineless person. On one hand, he hated himself for not being free and easy enough, and on the other, he hated her for being heartless. However, it was only after Meng Qingxue left that he suddenly realized that this little woman, who he had not taken to heart all this time, actually occupied such an important place in his heart. All along, he had not cared much about her because he was certain that she could not leave him. Other than staying by his side, she had nowhere else to go. It was because of this confidence that he did not seem to cherish her very much. However, when this little woman, who had always been delicate and naive, suddenly disappeared overnight and left him alone with the unborn child in her womb, he anxiously realized that he could also be so restless and anxious because of a woman. For a few days he did not have a good night's sleep. In his half-awake state, he would always dream of her face. When he woke up in a daze, he always had the illusion that she was sleeping beside him. However, he hurriedly turned on the light and looked at the empty bed beside him. It was icy cold, and his heart was filled with an indescribable sense of loss. Where exactly did she go? There was no news of her. Even if she left a trace, it would be good. At least, it would give him a glimmer of hope. But this heartless woman had left in such a way that she didn't even leave behind a single clue. It made him look like an idiot, aimlessly searching for her. He didn't even know when he would find her. But now, he was going to marry Song Enya. Actually, to him in the past, it did not matter who he married. He thought that marriage was just a dignified procedure. It did not matter who the marriage partner was as long as it was beneficial to him. Although the Song family could not be compared to the Lin's family, if the two families were to marriage was a marriage, It would definitely be able to resolve the imminent crisis for the Mu group as long as it was beneficial to him. For him it would be of great help. Chapter 2494. When the time came, he could brazenly bring any woman he wanted back to the Mu family. His wife would not have the right to speak. However, once the wedding date approached, he suddenly felt that marriage was meaningless. After Meng Qingxue left, he tried going to nightclubs to hunt for women like he used to. However, looking at those women with heavy makeup, he suddenly felt that they were very foreign and distant, as if they were unreachable. He also felt that getting to know a new woman and starting a new relationship was an extremely tiring thing. Every time this happened, Meng Qingxue's charming smile would uncontrollably appear in his mind. She lay in his arms and smiled foolishly like a lazy kitten, which was very seductive. Yanqing? She reached out and hooked her arms around his shoulders as she muttered in her sleep. Mu Yanqing. An angry voice finally brought him back to reality. Mu Yanqing came back to his senses and saw Song Enya's angry face. Mu Yanqing, you're distracted. Didn't you hear what I said just now? What did you say? I said that my wedding gowns must be custom-made by a famous designer. It's best if there are 5 of them. 2 will be worn on the wedding day and 3 will be reserved for the wedding photo shoot. Can you do that? Her tone was almost interrogative and very impolite, as if she was giving an order. 5 wedding gowns? Mu Yanqing was quite shocked. This woman was really demanding an exorbitant price. He did not have the mental and physical energy to prepare these. It was not that he could not bear to spend the money on 5 wedding gowns, but he felt that it was unnecessary. Preparing these required not only time and money but also energy. He did not have the patience. Uncontrollably, he recalled the bits and pieces of Meng Qingxue. He vaguely remembered one time when she held his arm and watched a TV show with him. The show was about the style and design of wedding gowns. He said disapprovingly, "A wedding gown is just a procedure for a wedding. It's not worth paying so much attention to." Meng Qingxue pouted coquettishly. It's a girl's ultimate dream to wear a beautiful wedding gown and marry the person she loves. When he heard this, he could not help but ask, "Is this also your ultimate dream?" "Of course not." Pausing for a moment, she said, "My dream is to be with you. If we can get married, I'll feel very lucky. I'm not picky about the wedding gowns. They're simple designs. Even if they're not luxurious or expensive, I don't care." After saying that, she said very proudly, "Because I'll look beautiful no matter what wedding gown." He smiled and kissed her affectionately. "You sly little thing. If you like it, I'll get someone to customize it for you." "Really?" she happily asked. "Will you marry me?" However, he was stunned and fell silent for a moment. Meng Qingxue knew that she had accidentally touched his taboo. He had once told her that he had no intention of getting married when he was with her.